Give me 1 second.
Yep.
All right, there we go.
Hey, man.
Hey, how you doing, dude? Hopefully things are going well for you.
Uh, not exactly, man. Not
No?
exactly,
Why not, man?
dude.
I mean, your
You know,
life is turned into my life in a very small amount of time. It's actually very, very strange.
no, it's funny. Um, so, look, it's already recording, so I'll just cut all this shit out.
That's
At
good.
stop, and basically, like I said, I want to hear from Manny. I'm going to say a few things, a few honest things at the top about Defango, but I'll try and be fair about it, and then we can just talk. I'm super interested in sort of like how did you end up in this fucking like place that you find yourself in, and and then obviously I'd love to. Yeah, and we don't have to cover everything here. Like if you like it, then we can do it again. It's not a problem. But I'd love to just sort of cover that that basic like Q period and put some of the dumbass disinfo to rest, if that makes sense.
Oh no, that totally makes sense. Makes sense. All right, hold on. Let me adjust my microphone a little bit because I think I'm way
Cool.
louder than you. I think I might be way louder than you. Hold on 1 second.
I think that's just how you are, man. I think that's
Well,
just maybe.
my microphone is really loud. I know my mic is really loud, so let me just turn the gain down a little bit and try
Cool.
to even that out for you. All right, that should work. All right, perfect.
Cool.
All right, well, I'm
All right.
more than happy to do that, man. There's a lot.
Since there is a lot. We'll try and keep it to an hour-ish, so it doesn't turn into a giant fest. And like I said, we'll come back to anything. If like we disagree on something, or if you just don't want to go somewhere, just tell me. Right? Just be open. Say, look, I don't want to talk about that right now, and we'll move on. All right.
All right, no, you got it,
Cool.
man. I'm sure that
Here we
probably
go.
won't be a problem.
Awesome. All right, I'm just gonna count it down. 3, 2. Hi, welcome. I'm gonna try that again because I forgot the name of my fucking show. Hi, welcome to Dispatches from the Mind War. I am Jim Stewartson. I have a very interesting show today. I have a guest on that I've been interacting with over just about the entire course of my investigation into QAnon and associated entities, and it's been contentious for most of the time. And I'm going to put it this way: my guest has sort of a LARP, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but he has a character that goes by the name Defango, and Defango has done some pretty horrendous shit, if I'm being honest. And Defango has, hurt some people that I know and whatnot. But there is also a Manny Chavez who, is the guy who does it, who fucking loves his dog, and we had to schedule around him repairing a printer. He's not like,
I wasn't
some
repairing a
fucking.
printer. I was fixing a dang internet connection. But it might
Oh,
as
okay,
well
my
be the
bad.
same thing. I don't know. I had to get
But
up early.
you do repair printers from time to time, right? I
Yeah,
got
I
you.
have repaired printers before.
Okay,
I don't usually try to fix them too often, but I install them and
right
stuff. I
on.
have lots of
The
clients,
point
man.
is you're a dude. You're just a guy. You're not like some like there are a lot of bad actors out there. All they do is be bad actors, right?
That's true.
So part of the reason why I've been just interested in your story, despite some of my objections, to things, because the thing about your story is it keeps fucking checking out.
I know it's a
And
fucking problem for a lot of people, actually.
it is, and I've been, and I'll stop monologuing for a minute and we'll get into it. But I've been told a lot of fucking stories by a lot of fucking people who want me to believe all kinds of things. And I'll be honest, I didn't believe a word you said, dude.
I know.
But the I know I was honest about it. That's the other thing is like when Mandy and I have had our very you know serious disagreements, we've always been honest about them. Fuck you. It's not like this subversive thing, It's just like, you fucking Antifa, get out of here, and I'll just be like, you fucking troll. And but underneath all that, like, there have been times when we've just had conversations and when I've learned a lot, and I thought it was worthwhile, for my listeners and anyone who's interested to hear the story from you unvarnished, how you got into this, like, what from your point of view is how actually QAnon got started, because there's so much just bullshit and disinformation around that, including a New York Times article that Manny and I agree with. I think entirely is complete bullshit.
Yeah, you're talking about that one that's talking about old Big
Falsehood.
Dickanon and
Big Dickanon.
Ron,
Yes.
but seems to not even discuss the Patriot soapbox and how they literally were posting his Q on their damn show and got caught.
Of course, of course. There's so much, and we'll get into that. But in the meantime, I'm grateful that you came on the show and you're willing to talk to me here. It's just going to be a conversation, and I'm glad to have Manny Chavez on the show, and Defango can stay wherever Defango is. Anyway, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I feel like I say this story all the time. I mean, I really do deal with a lot of crap, and I think it's mostly just because people just look at the story, they hear the story, but they just don't see a guy like me like having the foresight and forethought to actually be able to push people together, because it's just been a weird situation. I mean, if you really want to get to the beginning of it, like, I feel like this stuff started for me back all the way into like 2014 when I started really YouTubing a lot as Defango, and I was just sitting in front of my computer running
Right.
articles and looking at disinformation and like trying to debunk it, and that's basically what I was doing. So, I didn't get very far. I had been on YouTube since 2007, and
Hmm.
I decided that I wanted to try something. I wanted to, I really pushed myself into making something happen because I felt like I'd be a pretty good, YouTuber. I felt like I could do it. And I mean, in 2014, it was very strange because I was a big WikiLeaks supporter. I really kept it off of the chats that I had ever been a pirate or anything like that because I was worried about, like retaliation and shit like that. And ultimately, I started doing a lot of like stuff on WikiLeaks, started talking a lot about cryptocurrency because I've been in it since it began. And
Right.
honestly, it was just like a weird thing because like everything was really normal, nothing weird was happening until probably like 2016. And it was in 2016, like during the Trump election, I had spent a lot of time discussing trolls on the right, trolls on the left, trying to dive into the disinformation on both sides. And I kept on coming to the same points and the views. And overall, like, it didn't seem like I was getting anywhere until one day I was like drinking in front of my computer, which I drank a lot, by the way. Like, I was always drunk as shit when I was on stream. You would see me just like pounding a 12 pack like every night that I was on stream because I was depressed. I was like living with my
Yeah.
dad. Like, I'd never lived with my dad before. He left the family when I was like a little kid. So, like, I hardly knew him. And, he offered me
Oh
a
wow.
spot to live. And honestly, I was going
Uh,
through a lot of personal shit at the time, but he gave me a
yeah.
place to live. His name's also Manuel Chavez, by the way, and he kind of like put me into perspective on what the life was, and he like promoted me, and he was like, you need to try to do something more. And one day I was drunk, and I had this puzzle sitting on my desk top forever. It was like this Tagri 137 puzzle that had came out like the year before. And
Mm-hmm.
I just decided that I was drunk and I was like, all right, I'm going to try to solve this. And, I did. I don't know what happened. I just was sitting there, I figured out this part of this puzzle that nobody had been able to figure out for an entire year. And, all of a sudden I started getting all kinds of street cred. People were like, wow, this guy's like really good at what he does. I mean, he just like turns on his live stream and he's got his whole desk up there. He shows his bank account, his emails and stuff. Like he gives zero fucks. And
Right.
I was just like, okay, cool. So it was like the end of 2016 was when this is going on. And then all of a sudden I started getting a lot more followers. And it was upsetting me because it just didn't seem right. It felt like like I was getting followers too fast. Like the thing was going off and I kept on getting pop-ups. It'd be like every second where like somebody's following me and stuff. And I just like kind of put it in the back of my mind and try not to really dive too deep into it, but it felt shady. And it wasn't until early 2017, like in February, that this supposed cicada 3301 puzzle had come out. And
Right.
I decided to start the character, like I had always ran by the name Defango, but it was always just me. And I decided to step it up a little bit, like make somebody that was going to be the person that they thought it was. So, I got more brash. I started like, trying to actually do something. And the way
Right.
that this puzzle thing came to me, it just didn't seem organic. Like people were trying to get me to go solve it. People were coming in my chat. People were emailing me and they were like trying to guide me to it. And all at the same time, I knew about this cicada puzzles from my past experiences and I knew no PGP, no cicada, and all this other jazz and nonsense that they talked about. But I just didn't care because I was like, hey, I'm going to be able to get some pretty good stuff because if this is a real cicada and I expose it, like I'm going to be badass. Everybody's going to love it. And I was like, if it's
Right.
real cicada, then I'm going to be badass because I'm going to expose them and everybody's
Totally.
going to love it. So like
makes
to me, it was a good situation for me to be in. So I didn't really take too much of it. And it was 2 months, basically. It was the end of February through March on my birthday where I was like trying to solve this puzzle, made a Discord, got a bunch of people together. And this is really where the whole Q thing actually started. And it's because like I was just sitting there. I didn't know any of these people. I was a relative nobody on the internet outside of, all of the work that I've done. I'm a chef. I've worked in IT since I was fucking 15 years old. And I've been on a computer since I was 7. So like there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that I wouldn't be able to, play the character that I wanted to play. So I went on with Defango and I started seasons of my show and stuff like that just because it was
Mm-hmm.
more or less me trying to like troll the situation because Defango is mud, right? That's what Defango means. And I'm Manuel Chavez like out there in the mud digging through all the mud, aka the swamp, and trying to figure stuff
Right.
out.
Yep.
So in the early part of 2017, I was also working at a company called Firesight. And Firesight, they build websites, applications, technology. I had been working there for a long time with people who I considered my friends at the time, but now after
Right.
many years, I've realized that they were just using me for my skills. And, as soon as they got rid of me, I haven't even gotten a phone call or anything. I even started a festival with these guys, and I'm not even allowed to go to my own festival anymore. The festival that I helped
Wow.
start. So it's like they don't.
You were into EDM and stuff as well. I mean, we don't have to do it now, but at some point,
Yeah.
like that's a super interesting component of kind of how all this came together as well, right? It was like EDM and Bernie and it all kind of, right in 2014 through 2016 on, kind of on the left.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something that we should get into because in 2014, well, it was like 2013 really that I went to my first music festival, and I think it was a Coachella, right? Like I went to Coachella
Right.
with Firesight, and it was my first really big festival like that. And I was very impressed. I really thought it was cool. So I got into the festival life and I would go to different festivals and I would volunteer, usually in the medical department. if I could get into it and like help people. That's what I was there for, but I would also go and enjoy myself. And I made a lot of friends, man. Like people would call me a legend. Like they'd be like, that guy, man, well, that dude's a legend. I mean, he could do
Just
anything, he'll help
because you were
anybody.
around and connected and all that.
Exactly. I was around, I would connect. If somebody needed something, I would help them out, like I was a nice guy because I was just trying to make friends, really. And, I've got big artists and stuff that are my friends now that I still talk to this day that are all just flabbergasted that any of this stuff went down in the first place. And they still people are still going to be unraveling it for a really long time. But through Firesight, you started going to these festivals, and then I kind of broke off on my own and just, decided that I wanted to get more into that because it was really fun and it was a nice dichotomy from all the time that I was spending on the computer, building websites, fixing things. So
Right.
from, in this first point, I'm working at Firesight, I'm doing these puzzles and stuff, and it was just kind of like I was getting more popular because people were like, dang, dude, you like solved a cicada puzzle. That's insane. And for me, I was just kind of like, well, I don't know. It seemed kind of easy or whatever. I mean, I don't have anything to,
let's get into that for a second, right? Because look, the overwhelming sort of impression is that, you winning that was, engineered in some way or another. Right?
Yeah, that's what people do say. Like, well, a lot of people have to remember.
I'm not accusing you of that, but it certainly looks that way. And what you're describing about how people were guiding you to it, and it was kind of easy, right? Like what how did it actually end up getting solved? I mean, was there real puzzle solving happening in your Discord and all that stuff?
Yeah, there was real puzzle solving that was happening in my Discord. I mean, I was doing it all live. So when I was solving the puzzles, I had like hours and hours and hours of time where I would be online and I would be doing nothing but trying to solve these stupid puzzles. And I mean, I wasted a lot of time and I did all the work. And to be fair, there were times where there was certain parts of the puzzle, like in the middle, that I didn't solve myself. Like somebody else solved it before I even had a chance. So I used that and I always gave the person credit and said, hey, this is the person in my Discord. They're the ones that came up with this shit. This is how we got here. And then, I would force those people to show us what they did because that's what I was doing. I was trying to show people that this isn't hard. Anyone can do this. You just have to understand, the things that are necessary in order to do it. So I taught myself how to do cryptography while I was doing cryptography. And I got help from other people that were in my Discords that were also interested in trying to solve. And the thing here is that it was right around my birthday in March when, things got strange. And that's when the puzzle shifted into almost like this direct thing that they had just created just for me. And they were talking about going and finding the Spear of Destiny, but it was like kind of close to me, but not exactly close to me. But my knowledge of all of the people that was solving showed that I was basically the only person that was going to be near this thing. And I was just like, all right, this is weird, right? Like I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do, but I got in my shitty Toyota Celica and I drove out there with my friend Andrew and we just, we tried to find it. And guess what? We didn't find it. It wasn't there.
Right.
And after, I was like, well, I just wasted all this time on this stupid ship. I'm a dumbass. I get an email from some random email address that says, oh, the spear, it's already been got by somebody, but we want you to come like meet us and see it. And this is the point in time where things got really, really weird. Is because before this point in time, I was just the normal guy, didn't know any of these people, wasn't involved in that. Hell, I worked on the freaking Obama campaign for crying out loud. Like I was a Democrat for a really long time, and I think I just got to becoming the disaffected liberal because of that's the character that I was trying to play online. But through most people looked at me as just being a straight up Republican, and we can get into why I think that is later. I think it'll come up, but ultimately that day is when I realized that, like shit was a lot weirder. Right. So I had to go drop my friend Andrew off. And then I drove all the way back out to like, where was it? Slovane, California, I think. And I was freaking out because I thought I was going to be meeting with like, you know, some like super shady people, or maybe it's like the government. They have a bunch of people like stalking me out, because if you've ever read into the cicada security, those cicada, you know, conspiracy theories, it's like, you know, I could have been in big trouble. But I show up, you know, walk around the building, you know, like check everything out, and there's nobody there. All I see is this fucking fat guy and this lady sitting at this table, and the fat guy's like waving at me like he knows who I am, and I'm just like, oh wow. So this is definitely not what I thought it was going to be. And I just went in there and I kind of just sat down. I'm still in character and I'm just listening to this dude talk. And this is the first time that I ever met Thomas Schoenberger. And I didn't know who he was prior to that. I think he was saying his name was like Joe Billionaire, or he had another name that he was going by, but he wasn't presenting himself as being him. But this is when the whole cicada thing came out, and he gave me this grand story about how cicada really started and how he was a part of it, and how this new puzzle that we're solving is supposed to be like cicada. It's made by people that are in cicada, but it's supposed to be something different. And the thing that he had said that really kind of hit me on the head was that he was like, the original solver group for the cicada people, he was like, those people sucked. Like, they didn't want anybody that, you know, was on the outside of cicada telling people what it was. And they basically worked together, took over the Reddit, created like a Wikipedia page and a wiki page that they could only be the ones that updated, and they started controlling the narrative on cicada. And I knew that this was a thing going on since back in 2012, because I tried to solve that puzzle back in 2012 and I didn't get anywhere because I didn't know how to do it. You know, like I didn't have time, you know, it wasn't my time. So I moved forward and listened to what he had to say. But obviously the entire time I was like, oh my God, something's wrong here. And the reason that I felt something was wrong is because the lady that was with him was pissed. She was mad because she felt like, you know, like this guy was basically, you know, like wasting her time. And when I found out it was her birthday, and he told her that he wanted to take her to Slovene for her birthday, but in reality, he wanted her to come down to Slovene so that he could meet with me. And then,
oh my God,
he gives me like these letters that, you know, one of them I got investigated. It was definitely fake. The other two seemed pretty fucking real. It would be really hard to fake some of the stuff that's on there. But then again, I'm not an expert in how to fake or forge, you know, ancient documents. But he also gave me that damn spear. And when I got the spear, I immediately went to Temecula, California right after that, and like stayed at my friend's house. And me and my friends were like taking pictures with it, smoking weed, having a great old time. And, you know, I would not do that stuff online. Like you saw those pictures, but nobody else has seen those pictures, just because I didn't want to put it out there at that time, because, you know, we're still playing the character. I'm still trying to shine these people on and make them think that I'm some idiot that's just, you know, fell into something and then they would do it. So after that point, the cicada thing kind of got dulled out for a little bit. Like they stopped posting puzzles. I think I had the spear for like a week, and then I took it back to California.
So what happened with Thomas and like who was it his girlfriend or something? Like,
oh no, it was his landlady that he hadn't paid rent to in years. Her name was Linda. She was a sweet lady, but you know, it's messed up, because this will come back in the story, actually, is because when I first went and met them, you know, drove back to Arizona. I had this spear for like a week. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess I got to take it back to California. So I drove back to California, and I had to meet with this guy. His name was Michael Levine, and he was the guy that created the Kit Kat jingle, and he's done all kinds of movies, works with Hans Zimmer. So immediately when I met that guy, I was like, wait a minute. So like that fat fuck that seems shady as fuck is friends with this other guy. And it threw me through a loop, because like I started asking Michael a lot of questions, and Michael was like, yeah, Thomas. And he was one of the first people that was like, yeah, this is Thomas. His name's Thomas. Right. But I was like, well, he said his name was Joe, and he was like, his name's Thomas. Like, he was like, Thomas and me, we created this puzzle. We had some issues, and it was basically almost the same exact story that Thomas had given to me. The only difference is that Michael was very clear that he was helping Thomas in this endeavor because they had been working on it for a very long time. They tried to put it into video games and other things, and they honestly...
Yeah, they put it in...
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. That's some creepy shit, man.
Yeah. Well,
What the
think about
fuck is
it. Did
that?
you watch that show Person of Interest?
Oh, I think I've seen that too.
It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite shows. In Person of Interest, there's an episode that's called Nautilus, and it basically
Yeah.
seems to be exactly like the cicada story without saying cicada. And lo and behold, Mr. Michael worked on that goddamn TV show.
Of course he did. Yeah.
So,
And also worked on Assassin's Creed.
that's right. He did music for
So
that. So it made me like think, okay, so this isn't like super secret government type shit, but this is more like a bunch of Hollywood types, like a bunch of weirdos that are trying to make something. And
yeah.
it didn't seem scary to me at then. Because, it seemed so mundane after that. So, I give him the spear, I go back home, and basically nothing was happening until all of a sudden new puzzles start coming out and then videos, and it's like they took everything that they did in the first thing and then they like doubled it up. They like got more people hired or something. And then all of a sudden, like they're running another puzzle. And that was like June 1st. And like Thomas was not even in contact with me almost at all. Like I've put out all the emails and stuff so people can really see like kind of how this like jumped together. But all of a sudden this new puzzle comes out, so I get on my channel, we start solving it again, I'm getting followers, things are seeming great, things seem like they're going really good, and I'm
Is
happy.
this like summertime?
Yeah, it's like summertime, and so it's like, I'm in between working at Fireside and doing puzzles. Sometimes I was doing the puzzle at work when I didn't have anything to do, and like everybody was supporting me because they're like, dude, you're doing some cool ass shit or whatever, like this is crazy, you got some skills. And that's when it got really weird because the whole entire puzzle itself really changed like its entire narrative. Like it went from being just about like puzzles and kind of being a little bit woo woo, I guess would be the easiest way to put it, to being more directed and kind of like talking about death and destruction and how things are going to get bad. And this whole thing seemed
Right.
like a very big departure from what I had seen before. And like they were talking about like anarchy and all this other stuff. And I was just like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I was like,
It, it
okay.
definitely got it definitely got dark. Do you know where that came from?
Well, I know now that most of it was actually Richard Miller. So, like, Richard Miller was one of Thomas Schoenberger's acquaintances. Richard Miller is
Z.
also, yeah, Z. He's the one guy that has proof that he actually created the original cicada puzzles, and he has copious amounts of that proof. He's only really
Yeah, I've
had
seen
to
it.
put out one email, though. That's the one email where he's literally asking a person to sign a PGP key to a 2013 puzzle, basically the very first run. And that's when everybody, I think, started to, that threw me through a loop, but I didn't learn this for a very long time. But at that point, it was mostly just Richard kind of just doing whatever he wanted to do. And I mean, the guy's smart. He may work as a janitor or whatever, or do facilities at his job. But I mean, he's been in college for longer than some people have been alive, right? And he's got
Oh
so
no,
many.
that dude's really smart and really good at puzzles and crypto and shit. Like
Yeah,
for sure. I went through those emails and he absolutely was. But do you think he was the in terms of the shift in how it was directed and how it got darker and frankly kind of more fash, right?
yeah.
Like why like did it come from Richard? That seems
Well,
weird. He doesn't seem like that guy.
most of the puzzle stuff came from Richard, but from what
Right.
you could see in Richard's emails, like a lot of it was, Thomas would basically give him a couple of things to go off of, but Thomas was like, make sure
Right.
that this is in this, and this comes into play in
Mhm.
June, because in June, like that's when a lot of help started coming, and that's when Z started popping up in our Discord chats, and like when we went back in history, some of the stuff that got solved, I think that he was
Right.
actually just dropping it in there because all
Yeah.
of us were fucking idiots and we couldn't figure it out. So, I was okay with it, but, I just kept solving the puzzles and, saying other people should solve them because I was trying to make it bigger, right? And it
Right.
wasn't until we went through that point that Thomas started coming at me and being like, all right, so we kind of want to make you like the voice of Cicada. You could still solve the puzzles and stuff, but you got to be like our main channel because you're the most popular person there. At that time when I heard that, I was like, wow, this is really cool. But in the back of my mind was like, damn, they must have really spent a lot of money on subscribers and fake views, and like invested in my business, as it were. They invested in it so that they could keep it going and get more people into it. So in
You
June,
mean so like the fake followers that you were thinking about? You think maybe came from
oh, I know they came from him.
them?
Well,
Yeah.
when we found out that Thomas Schoenberger had a account on, what is that damn website where you go, not Fiverr, but it's like Fiverr. I can't remember what
Yeah.
the name of it is right now, but a lot of people go on there. You can pay like $5, get fake viewers, fake followers and stuff. But we actually found Thomas's account, and it was like Tea Tree or something like that, or like Treehouse. And because he
Right.
had slipped up one time, sent something to somebody, and we figured it out that he had been doing this. And I mean, you could just go on his account page and see how many times in the recent history he had been buying things like followers and stuff. And he wasn't buying them for his own personal channel. But if you went to his personal channel, you would see that he had a video with like 10 million views on it, even though he only had like 700 subscribers or some shit like that. So it's like, how do you get that
Right.
many views but then don't actually get that many subscribers? And obviously it was because he fucking bought them.
Yep.
So at
Yep.
this June time, this is a culmination of a lot of disinformation. It was like they had been watching me and watching my show for a while and started picking out different things that I had already talked about, like the Seth Rich
Uh-huh.
conspiracy theory. And it was really weird to me because they had set me up on an interview to go on to Jimmy Church's show, Fade to Black, and then talk about the cicada puzzle. And during that time, again, just like when the cicada puzzle started for me, they were trying to be all like, yo, you guys need to go check out this George Webb, Jason Goodman. They got some Seth Rich files or something. It's going to be crazy. So obviously, like, I had already researched it and I was like, this is probably bullshit. And that's why I went over there, because I wanted to see. I wanted to see what they
Uh-huh.
had. I wanted to see what their documents were, where they had came from, and basically
So
figure it out.
let me ask you, because I want to hear about those guys and Seth Rich. Let me ask, because you're real active at this point, right? You're like you're going on shows and you're fucking, you've got this Discord server and you're kind of pushing cicada. Like, are you getting paid by anybody, or are you just doing this because you like it?
I was
Like,
doing it because I liked it.
what's your motive? What's your motivation?
Well,
Like,
my motivation at the time was that I was trying to create something with myself. Like, I had this grandiose idea that, I had finally made it when I was working at Fireside. I was starting to get clout online and getting views because, I worked in tech and, I was very open about what I was doing. So I was like, yo, maybe I could be a YouTuber. I had always wanted to be a YouTuber. I'd always tried to get popular. And to me, it just kind of felt like the good time. I didn't have a girlfriend, so I would spend most of my time working. And
got it.
then every other time I was just doing this. And I was paying all of this shit for myself. Like, it was coming out of my own pocket. Like, almost everything. I mean, I did have one guy that, started donating me money. His name was Adam, and he was a cool guy. He just said, hey, I like what you do. And, like, honestly, I invest in a lot of different other shows. He told me the different shows, but it's not like he's an investor. He's just like a random dude on the internet that goes and donates. And I mean, he was really big into the No Agenda show with Adam, or what's his name? The guy that started podcasting. I can't remember his name off the top of my head all of a sudden. But, he was into that guy. He was into wrestling. He was into all this stuff. So, he was trying to help me out. And that's actually how I got to Defcon. He was the person that paid for my ticket to go. It wasn't Thomas or anybody else. It was that dude. He was like, yo, dude, this is going to be cool. I'm going to pay for your ticket. You're going to go. And I was like, sweet, thanks, man. That saves me some money, because I wasn't exactly rolling in the dough.
Wait. Let's back up a second. So this guy sends, like, paid for your ticket to go to DEFCON.
Yeah,
right?
he like sent me a
Why do you-
PayPal.
Yeah, why do you do that though? Like, who do you know who he is? Like, why would he do that? Because DEFCON was a very important event. as we'll find out.
Yeah, it
Right?
was an important event, but I think he did it because he was supporting like what I was doing, and I've met the guy in person, been to his freaking house. Adam Curry, that's the guy's name.
Okay.
Other guy's name is the guy that started podcasting. Thank you. Um, he basically to me didn't seem like he was a bad dude at all. Like he wasn't involved with
Well,
any
I'm
of
not
these
saying he's
cicada people.
necessarily bad, but it's just interesting, right? If you've got somebody who's kind of like just out of the blue supporting you, that's
Well,
just an
it's like
interesting
Tanya.
data point. Is all I'm saying.
Like
Totally, Tanya. Yes,
the two main people that funded, Defango as a whole are Tanya Biss and, my boy Adam. Those are the two
Yep.
people. And honestly, like Tanya Biss had been donating to my channel far before any cicada shit had ever even appeared on my shit. Like she was just one of the first people to actually donate. Like she would throw me super chats and stuff like that. And then the
Right.
same thing with with Adam. And after this, like I was just like kind of cool, man, and that whole month of June was kind of like fucking crazy, man. Like so much shit started happening. There was all this like there was the dirty bomb hoax. There was the Seth Rich files.
Yeah,
And
God, I remember that. I mean, that's a whole fucking show into itself. But how did RDS get involved in this fucking?
RDS
thing?
got involved through Thomas Schoenberger.
Through Tanya, right?
No, not through Tanya. No, that's
Oh.
wrong actually. So like,
Oh.
Thomas Schoenberger was emailing me on my Fireside email address all the time saying, hey, I got different people you can meet. You can interview John McAfee. You can interview my friend RDS. And I was just like, Robert Davis Steele? And I'm like thinking in the back of my head, you mean like the fucking guy that was saying that like there was sex slaves in Mars and shit? And I was like, oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. I get this fucking guy on my show. And I did
Totally.
it as good as I could, like I went and bought a fucking suit. When I interviewed him the first time, I wore a suit. I was like all trying to be all professional because I wanted this guy to think that, I was not this internet troll or anything like that, that I was like a legitimate person. So RDS came to me, and then basically the way it happened is that RDS went on to Jason Goodman and George Webb's show and got interviewed. And then right after that, he came on to my show and I interviewed him. And then the Goodman guys basically were pissed that I had interviewed Robert David Steele. And then it started this whole thing where they're like talking crap about RDS. And then RDS is like, well, I'm going to sue. And I was just like, hey, well, my friend Tanya said that her husband was a lawyer and he was saying that he was going to take my case pro bono. Maybe you should just talk to him and you get like a twofer or something like that. And that's how that shit actually happened. Like I was introduced
Jesus.
to RDS by Thomas, and then RDS met me, and then I introduced Tanya to RDS, and then that's how that whole situation started and happened. And after that, like Biss was asking us to help with the lawsuit. Like he was like, hey, could you guys help collect information? And I was like, am I getting paid? And he was like, no. And then I was like, well, then I'll if I have time, if I got time to look at some shit, I will. And, for the first part of it, it was only Jason Goodman versus RDS. And, then they kind of put my case on the back burner. And I just didn't ever really care. Like I said, I was going to sue Jason Goodman. And then I Googled how much it would cost me to sue Jason Goodman. And shit, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to afford this. Because even if he's taking my case pro bono, I'm going to have to pay for all this extraneous shit that I simply just don't have the money for. So I just kind of like let it go and was like, whatever. And it was towards the end of the month that I was getting messages a lot from people. And, I saw some stuff about Defcon and I was like, you know what? I think it would be really cool, for my, street cred and shit like that if I went to, Defcon and then, sought out the guys that solved the original cicada puzzles and like maybe talk to them. And I thought that would have been a pretty good thing. So I put it out there. I asked Thomas just like offhand, like, do you know anybody at, Defcon? And then later on, within like a week or so, there was a new Defcon puzzle that was put together. And I think my boy Richard did it. He put it all together. And it was all because they wanted to like make something even bigger. And little did a lot of people know that the guys from the original Cicada Solver group were going to Defcon and filming for a documentary on Cicada 3301 that's on YouTube by a channel called Great Big Story. It's like 4 parts, but I think it's called Cracking the Code. They went to
Mm-hmm.
that thing and they were getting like filmed and shit like that. So I figured, hey, if I run into these cats, this has been a good trip. If not, maybe I can buy some cool tech and, sit in on some decent lectures that I can then turn around and use in my job at Firesite because, I was the director of IT, all of the computers and everything, security, that was all on me. So, I felt like I would have put me in a better position. So
Right.
that's when Defcon got enabled or got happened is because I asked for it to happen. And then out of nowhere, I was kind of like, shit, it's like $250. And, Adam was like, here, take the money, go to Defcon. You're the best researcher on YouTube. You need to go. He's like, it'll be good for you. And I just was like, sweet, man. And then I think when I went there, I stayed at another person's house, a girl that was watching my show, like, she invited me to sleep on their couch, basically. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. I'll just sleep on your couch and then go to DEF CON. Because, I didn't have the money for that stuff. I was, basically destitute at that point. Like, I thought I had a pretty good job at Firesite. But, in hindsight, like, I was getting paid $18 an hour to do, $150 an hour job. But those guys were my friends. We did drugs together. We partied. It was fine. Whatever. Like...
Right.
And this is how that part started. And it was already kind of strange to me during June because, like, Thomas was telling me one thing, but then he'd forget what he'd tell me and then tell me something else. And then, I started asking questions, trying to dig in a little bit more. And that's when all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I feel like there's something even worse that's going to happen. Like, these guys are obviously trying to play me. I'm obviously doing a really good job making them think that, I believe all of this shit. I was like, but I'm in a bad place right now because after the, DEFCON thing, the Fireside guys were very unhappy with me and something had changed with them. Like, all of a sudden they didn't like Manuel no more. It's like Peter Thiel called in and he was like, yo, that motherfucker Manuel, he's done. Get rid of him. And, I found out that Peter Thiel was actually an investor into the company Firesite. I just found that out recently. And I also found out that, well, I knew this for a while, but like when I originally met Sean and Jason from Firesite, we used to party a lot, actually. Like, we were partying when they were at college in ASU. My brother lived at the same apartment complex that they lived at. So, like, I would show up on the weekends after my job at Walmart and, like, go party. And then we kind of met each other. And one night, we're all sitting in, like, the kitchen. And I tell them about, what I do for a living. And that's how they started Fireside. Is like, they heard me talking about building websites and stuff. And I basically gave them exactly what they needed to do to start their company. And then, like, literally within days, they had the LLC set up and they were on it. And I wasn't a part of the company back then, but, it was like a week or two later, we were having a party and out of fucking nowhere, Elon Musk shows up and, like, we're doing shots with Elon Musk in the house. Elon Musk is obviously older than all of us, but Musk was friends with them. And, I was just kind of like, oh, that's cool. I know Elon Musk now, So,
wow.
All this stuff, with Firesite is very, very involved with it because those guys are super well connected. And they don't really like me too much anymore, even though, I never did anything to fuck them over. They kind of fucked me over, really. Like, I was supposed to have equity in the company. I don't have any equity in the company. I worked for Sweat Equity for over 3 years and never got it. I barely got any raises and stuff. And then they fired me and then they hired a bunch of other people in my place that because they were saying that they wanted to move from having physical IT stuff and they wanted to just be full Amazon Web Services shit all the time. So it was just like, whatever, man, like it really bummed me out because like in the middle of me having all this success with this cicada thing, I was having problems at work and it was all associated to what I was doing with the cicada.
Well, it is definitely interesting how, when powerful people, get upset with you, things start going wrong in your life, right?
Yeah, well,
jobs start getting lost, like all kinds of shit just starts going wrong.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
And, Yeah, I know. I've experienced it as well.
So
I'm saying that what you're saying, I can't comment on Fireside or the people there. I don't know any of them, but I do know that this kind of thing happens. It really does.
it does,
So I'm
and
sorry that happened.
I brought it upon myself, like, obviously, but what could I have done at that point? I mean, they really put me into a bad place where I had to crash out a lot of my, like, cryptocurrency that I'm able to cash out. I still have shitloads more that I am unable to cash out because bad things will happen to me, but I was just kind of stuck at that point. So it's like I go to Defcon and I'm walking around, and the group, the solver group, they like found me. They found me,
Wow.
surrounded me, and like started recording me and like asking me questions. And I'm just like, guys, do you didn't watch my video, so you don't actually know what I'm doing. And I was like, I'm trying to prove this is either not cicada or is cicada, who's behind it, and I'm trying to expose it. I'm trying to do the thing that you guys didn't fucking do back in the day that created this whole entire problem in the first place. Like, I'm trying to solve that
Right.
problem. And that's when I
Yeah.
finally learned that Thomas was the Thomas. He was the Thomas. So after I have that meeting with the cicada
What do you mean, the
guys,
Thomas?
well, the Thomas, because if you've ever looked into the cicada 3301 lore, or if you ever mention the name Thomas to the guys from the cicada wiki, they will immediately be disgusted and have a whole lot to say. And through their own fault, they actually exposed the fact that they knew of Thomas Schoenberger and the cicada puzzles all the way back to 2012 and 2013 when Thomas's music, Thomas and Michael's music, showed up in the puzzle. So,
Right.
like,
Yeah,
they
that my impression was that they got in there super early and they were trying to kind of become trying to take it over inside of it. When they got resistance, they basically just split it off and game jacked it.
exactly, that's exactly what they did. And then they basically controlled the narrative because they had a lot riding on it. I mean, fuck, hell, they were doing a documentary for it there, and it was the first time that all of them doxed themselves. So it was like I was one of the first people to actually know outside of their group who they all were, what they all looked like, and I was like trying to put it to them that, guys, I'm not trying to destroy what you're doing. I'm trying to do the things that you guys didn't have the ability to do. I'm trying to do the
Right.
things that you guys didn't have the balls to do, right?
Yep.
So once I finally figured that out, like immediately after I talk with them and get them to stop fucking following me, I call Thomas and I hit him with what his real name is. And I say, hey, I just talked to all these people. You fucking lied to me. And this is when everything got weird because Thomas changed immediately and he started being very different about everything. And it was at
Right.
that point that I knew that whatever happened next, he was going to try to fuck me as hard as he possibly could. So I was kind of stuck. So I ran into two different people that were also members, real members of Cicada 3301. One guy's name Soldier X, the other guy's name was Lucky 255, and they both approached me separately and were like, "Hey, so this is how all of this stuff went down." And they basically told me how the Mojave phone booth got involved with the puzzle and how they were doing a puzzle specifically for the phone booth, but then Thomas and Richard kind of like made it this bigger overall cicada style thing, and that's how this whole entire thing came through in the first place. And these guys didn't want to get doxxed. They don't want people knowing that they're members of cicada and stuff. But we sat and talked and we tried to game plan like what could be the next thing. And I was like, well, Thomas is a thief. All we have to do is create something that's going to be so fucking juicy that he cannot let it go by the wayside without trying to make it his own. Because I had seen what he had done with Cicada. I had seen what he had done with the Seth Rich thing. So I had a pretty good idea on how that I could basically snitch jacket the snitch jacketer. Because that's what he was trying to do. I was like, dude, if I come up with something, if I get a bunch of people here to do something, I'm going to be able to do it in such a way where nobody's ever going to be able to truly figure it out, even though everything's right in front of them. And I was like, it's going to be perfect. So I had already printed out a bunch of these like QR codes that they had given me to scan that basically just took you to the Cicada puzzle website that had a puzzle on it. And I printed out a bunch of them, and I was walking around Defcon just handing them out to fucking everybody. I would just walk up, hand it to them, and be like, "You like puzzles?" And then they would take it from me, and I would just walk away. And then they would look at it, see the Cicada logo with the QR code, and then they would start trying to chase me down and ask me more questions. And I would just be like, "Oh man, I'm just passing these out. I don't really have any more information for you. But if you want to learn more, you could go to this whistleblower meeting. It's a Sky Talk. It's on Saturday. Check it out." And then that's all I would tell them. So throughout the time, Friday I meet the original Cicada guys. Friday night I go back to my spot, and I actually did a live stream where I discussed this with the girl's boyfriend, and we were talking exactly about how I was going to start this whole thing, and like we were coming up with the name and what it was going to do and what the point of it was supposed to be. And then the very next day I go back, it's Saturday, and that's when, my big talk is. So I just kind of hung around, kept on passing out these things, and then ended up at the whistleblower talk. And I went to two of them that day. They had one that was right before the whistleblower talk that was all about child exploitation material on the internet and how to actually properly get that shit reported and, the do's and don'ts and all of that, because I was trying to, use my skills for better things out there. And after that, we had the whistleblower meeting. A bunch of people talked and stuff, and it was like really strange because like they don't allow you to record in there. There's no sign up sheet or list of the names of people that were in there. Like if they catch somebody with a camera or a microphone, they straight up ban you from Defcon for life, because that's a place that they talk about very sensitive materials that cannot leave. At the same time, there are people with government clearances there learning these things that probably don't want to get, exposed in any way. And I was just like, this is the perfect location for me to tell my story, tell people what I want to do, and maybe possibly get some people in high places that are willing to help me on the DL. And I was very clear about like what I wanted. I talked to these guys and I was like, look, guys, like websites like 4chan, 8chan have been the bane of the internet forever. And I was like, I'm a guy that's been there since the very beginning. I was on Something Awful forums when we were using Something Awful to plan shit and then go to 4chan so that we could run raids, Habbo Hotel, pools closed, that whole thing, like I was a troll back then as well. I was literally...
right before this, I interviewed my friend Hi-Fi, who was also around during that whole entire period. Some crazy shit. So you were running with Anons on Something Awful and all that stuff?
Well, I technically was never an Anon because I always use my name Defango. Like that's the thing is like when you go talk to guys like Aubrey Cottle or Greg Hausch, all of these guys know exactly who I am because I was the one calling them out. I was the guy that was calling them out for their bullshit back in the day. And I literally saw how this new leftist paradigm, the people that be running after you all the time and do all the shit that you're dealing with, I was there when those people were just barely coming up in the internet and learning to do what they're doing. And now I just watch them do what they do, and I can almost immediately tell you exactly who it is, which group they're coming from, because they haven't changed in all of these years. Their shit has never changed. So I was like, damn, I need some help. So I told some people about my idea, and I was like, look, we get on 4chan, we start posting some bullshit information. We just need somebody that's got a Q clearance, like, as long as you say you're a member of the group, you don't even have to tell us your name or anything. We just need to be able to legitimately say, yeah, we have Q clearance, but you're not actually a part of it. You're just, giving us your clout so that when we speak and we say we have Q clearance, it's believable. Because that kind of thing does actually transfer when you're typing on the internet and stuff. There is a consciousness aspect to the way that you manipulate people with social engineering that allows these kinds of things to happen. So a bunch of people were listening. Not very many people stayed off. And basically, I kind of felt like I was a fucking failure. I was like, well, I kind of failed because nobody's really here to nobody's coming up to me and telling me that they want to help me and shit. So I left, and then I got, the tap on the shoulder. This kind of shorter, this guy, it's a little taller than me, but definitely he looked like a Fed. basically. He looked like somebody that had some kind of government operation shit. And he walks up to me and he says his name is Justin. He told me that he was with this organization called MAGA 3X, which I was kind of like, the deplorable? Like, that's you? And he was like, I really like the thing that you were talking about, and I think that, you know, we could utilize this for good, because ultimately I wanted to expose disinformation artists with this whole thing. I was like, if we put out bad information that we know is bad, we could track that bad information to all of the different bad information giving people.
Right.
We can make a definitive statement that this person is literally disinformation. And, you know, like guys like David Icke, and anybody that would be even in his way, Alex Jones, for crying out loud. Like, these were all the people that I was trying to target with this type of disinformation, because they're the ones that have people that all they're doing is searching on 4chan and trying to find good information so that they could go put it, you know, up on their shit, right? So they could, you know, make a new news.
So this is Justin McConey, right?
Yeah, this is Justin McConey, and I didn't. So me and Justin,
and you didn't know that, but I just want to be clear about something. When he introduced himself as part of MAGA 3X. He didn't introduce himself as part of the Trump administration.
That's right. He did not introduce himself as part of the Trump administration, but
he identified himself as MAGA 3X. Because to me, that's important here. Really important.
It's very important that people get that. And I kept on saying MAGA 3X for a long time, and nobody would care about it. But I'm like, you know, MAGA 3X, Peter Thiel, there's something there that nobody's seeing, right? Nobody's talking about for some reason. So I took Justin around, and he wanted to like check shit out. So like we went around Defcon. I took him and like a couple other people to a bunch of like secret parties that I had gotten invited to. And, you know, we were just kind of hanging around talking. And then he was asking me a lot about like what I did. And he was like, yeah, I know you worked on the Obama campaign. And I was like, well, I volunteered for it, you know, or maybe I was volunteered the first time, and the second time I was voluntold. And then they gave me access to a bunch of Twitter accounts. And I'll be honest, all I was doing was retweeting the accounts with the other accounts. It was pretty simple. I could do it like in my sleep. So he was talking to me, and he was like, well, how come you never applied for the Trump campaign? And I was like, what are you talking about? I did apply to be on the Trump campaign. I was like, I never got a call back or anything like that. And I was like, I thought it would be good to, you know, have a presidential campaign. That's why I went on the Obama campaign in the first place, is because I applied for his campaign and I applied for McCain's campaign. And I lived in Arizona, and McCain's campaign didn't call me back. But Obama's campaign did. And they freaking had somebody pick me up and drive me to goddamn New Mexico to like help run the freaking campaign. It was crazy. So another person that was there at DEFCON, by the way, is Posobiec, Jack Posobiec. Like I keep saying, he was there because I remember when I was sitting there talking in the whistleblower meeting, I was like, we need to get like a journalist, you know, somebody like super right, like Jack Posobiec. And then like, I remember him just kind of like looking over at me and like giving me the hands. Like, what the fuck, dude? You're not supposed to be doxing people. And I was like, I pointed at him and I was just all like, nobody knows it's you. If you didn't raise your fucking hands, nobody would have known. And he was, you know, like, so it's like, you know, we have these two fucking guys.
Did you know Posobiec at that point?
No, I didn't know I knew of him. You know, I'd seen his stuff on Twitter. I'd been following what he'd been doing online. So like, I was aware of who he was, but I was like, he's the perfect candidate because he fits the bill. As you know, for exposing, and you know, we had planned out a years in advance, on you know, almost a year in advance, how all of this shit was supposed to go down. Like at first, we're supposed to post, and then we let the post get away from us, and we give it to somebody else, but make them think that they fucking stole it, and then they move it over to HN because that's how everything happens.
So you planned that whole because that's what Gamergate did, right? Like that's what a bunch of these LARPs do. Is they hop from 4chan to 8chan, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's they're like, so you had that. I just want to be clear. So you had that plan. Did you come up with that plan, or were there other people?
I came up with that plan. That was my plan. Like that was the big part of it.
Let me ask you this: did you have any like compunctions about dealing with Jack Posobiec at that point? I mean, given that you know, obviously your politics were not super far right. At least historically, Pasubik's fucking neo-Nazi, basically, right? I mean, he does 1488 shit all the time, all that stuff.
I mean, that's
So
what I've
did
heard.
that feel, did that, what's that?
That's what I've heard, but specifically for Posobiec, like we never had any interactions outside of that little point thing. And then I didn't ever talk to him again until I reached out to him when he was like, hey, I want to know about this, like I want to break open this Q thing. And I had messaged him on Twitter and basically gave him the rundown. And I mean, it's like he took one look at me and he was like, yeah, I know your story is true, but fuck you because you're not going to protect me. So I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to somebody else. So that's when Microchip got into contact with him. And then that's when they found out that they knew each other through working out at the gym or some shit. And it kind of just went on its own way. So like, at that point, I was really only talking to Justin. I gave him my information, and then like I took him to a concert that was happening there, and I kind of just fucking faded away. Like I brought him into the crowd, into the very middle, and then I just disappeared because I mean he told me that he was a Fed, and then he told me that he was a member of MAGA 3X, and then like towards the end he
what
was
do you
like,
mean he told you he was a Fed?
Well, that's how he introduced himself.
He said, I'm a Fed?
Yeah, he says, yeah, I know I look like a Fed, right? I'm a Fed. And the reason he was saying that is because, like, at Defcon, there's a game, and it's called, Spot the Fed. And if you find a Fed, somebody that works for the federal government, you're supposed to take them back to a certain place, and basically, like, you win a prize for being able to identify somebody that is a Fed. But it was already after the point that I could have done that, so I took him out into the middle of this like concert field, and then I just kind of faded the fuck out, like ran away, because like things were weird that night after he had came with me. We went to one party. There was this guy that was trying to get us to build drones for the South Sudanese army and shit. I mean, it was really, really, really fucking crazy. So, I was just kind of like at my limit.
Was Flynn around at that DEF CON?
I don't think so.
I've heard that. You don't think Flynn was around? Okay.
No, I don't think he was around.
Okay.
All I know is that the only people from, very few people, like McConney and like Posobiec, I definitely remember seeing him there. But outside of that, like not very many people truly approached me outside of the people that I've already talked about. So, I kind of went home and I was like, so, I put out the idea, this is the idea. I think it's going to be a really good. And it was like maybe a week later that I had gotten a phone call from the dude, Justin. And he was like, all right, I got some people together and, like, we're going to do this shit. And I was like, cool. Well, you already know the plan. You already know what we're supposed to do. So, if you want, like, make a Discord or whatever the fuck, and, I'll get in there and explain to them what needs to happen, and then I'm out. And I was like, because I have to be out of it in order for this whole thing to work, because I'm only coming up with the idea. I'm not the guy that's supposed to be posting. I'm supposed to be sitting in the background saying things out of order that make it seem like I know more about the situation. It's like, the first time somebody asked me about QAnon, I said, that's some like Matlock shit for old people, right? And Matlock was the fucking password for Q, right? And then at one point,
I remember.
Or there was one.
So let me be clear about this. So Justin called you back a week later after DEFCON.
Yeah, it was after DEFCON.
Let's do it, right?
And he was like, "Let's do it." And it's funny because look at what happened with McConney.
I got to pause here. Hold on. This is important, right? Because here's what you're saying. Here's the claim, and I want to just make this clear. And I'm not doubting you or endorsing it, but you're saying something really important, which is you had this idea for the Q LARP, right?
Yes.
And you met fucking Trump's Twitter whisperer, like Justin McConney.
Yep.
The Twitter, like the guy who's been with Trump for 10 fucking years and grew his entire social media.
And got fired by Trump. That same month, it was the last month that he like.
I thought he left in March of 2018.
No, it was in November of 2017. He was out.
Oh,
so it's like
interesting.
In September we were talking about.
But hold on, but it's important though because what this means is the fucking Trump administration started or co-created Q, right?
Yeah, in a small way.
With like under the aegis of MAGA 3X, which is fucking Flynn and Peter Thiel's thing.
Exactly.
So it's really important what you're saying. It's an important claim that the guy from the Trump administration called you back and was like, "Cool, let's do this fucking 4chan LARP." So now, please continue. I apologize, but I just think it's an important moment to capture.
So, like, McCartney was saying that he had already known that he was no longer going to be with the Trump administration because basically MAGA 3X was getting shut down. And so was like basically his involvement with Trump. Ever since Trump was in the White House, they had no use for Mr. McCartney anymore. So, like in one way, yes, these people were adjacent and connected to Trump. But at the same time, I think the thing that really pushed them to want to do this was to fuck with Trump is because number one, they weren't getting paid what they were supposed to be getting paid, and then they kind of just like took all of these people in this whole entire organization that helped Trump get to where he was and just were like, fuck you guys later. So I was like, cool. So this is when McConaughey introduces me to the microchip, and then we got a couple of other characters in there that I still to this day I can
what
only
do you mean
guess.
by that? Hold on. Because Microchip and McConaughey, right? Like when you say introduced you to Microchip, what does that mean?
Well, he was like, here's my Discord account. And then he was like, see this other guy here? His name is Microchip. This is my guy. And at that point, I had no fucking idea who this dude was or whatever. I was just like, so he's like the best troll that you know? And he was like, yes, excellent troll. Probably the best that's ever lived. And I was like, sweet. You did it good. I was like, good job. Like this is what we needed. And I looked into like their associated Discords and stuff, and I saw the Anime Right and a bunch of other like Discord servers that were totally related to, I guess what you would say, what is now known as the alt-right. And it was like a huge entire group. So they were selecting different people that they knew from each of these different groups to kind of come together and write this thing together. And it was a very small group. I didn't stay in there for very long. And then I gave up access to the Discord account that I had made just to interact with these people in the first place, because I didn't want, any connections coming back to me out of touch, because my whole goal is that I'm going to come out and say that I was the person that began this, and then I'm going to get shit on by literally everybody and their fucking mother for years. And I was like, but the thing that makes this so powerful is the fact that I'm just a regular guy. I don't need to lie about this shit. My life is so fucking crazy on its own that, me embellishing anything is so noticeable. It's outrageous. So we went into this and I just kind of went away, dude. Like I said,
so wait. You're skipping over an important part. Like you said, it's just a small team, right? Yeah, and what if you don't want to say names or whatever, any other names or whatever, but like, I think I know that there were at least four people involved on that initial server, right?
Yeah, at least four, yeah.
And Justin was one. James Brower was one, right?
James Brower was one. I think Doug Stewart was one, but his girlfriend, who, by the way, wasn't fucking there, Leah, keeps on telling me that Doug wasn't there. But that's the thing, is that there was an account in there that's called Droog. And I thought that, after meeting, not meeting Doug in person, but talking to him in 2018, I assumed that Droog was Droog, because like he had information about this whole thing that you wouldn't have been able to get unless you were there, like actually there or reading into it. But I've never been able to lock it down that he was a part of it.
What was Droog's role, and who invited Droog?
Droog was the admin of the server. It looks like he was like the guy that like created the Discord server that we were all working on, and then he was the first person to ever have that queue.
Discord. So it wasn't your Discord?
No, it was not my Discord server. Like they invited me to it. They had me create
I got that all wrong. Okay.
Yeah, it was not my Discord server. It was a Discord server that they created, and I created a secondary like Discord account called like Turbo with a throwaway email address, and I gave them access to it, and I was like, have somebody else like log in under this name and like act like it. This will make sense later. But at that point, after I talked to them, like it was getting towards the end of September, and I just was like, all right, well, good luck. I'm going to be paying attention. And if I see something, like we already had it
So you
planned
bounced
out.
out at the end of September, and you never went back.
Yeah, I never went back. And I just kind of like hung out. So like throughout October, um, I was watching the 4chan boards and like, kind of seeing stuff that could be there or might be it, but ultimately none of it really included the very specific things like Hillary Clinton getting arrested. So, I didn't really give it too much credence until like the
Right.
very, very first
It did
post.
seem like there were some proto cues like running around for a couple weeks beforehand.
There
right?
was like they were trying to it. So like anytime anything happens on 4chan, 8chan, like it doesn't happen overnight. Like it's very rare that you could just post something on 4chan and then all of a sudden get viral. Like you have to keep forcing it because the way that website works is that it moves so fast that your thread's always going to go to the bottom. So it became basically these guys had the job of utilizing their various discords that they were involved in. They would have one guy go post something and then the other guy would go post under it to like bump the thread, and then they would start spreading it around all the other servers to get more people to bump it so that it would stay up at the top. And it took them a while before they finally got somewhere with it. Once they got somewhere with it, like it was go time. Like, and I remember it was like very quickly people were already asking me about it in my YouTube channel, and I was just kind of like, well, it's Matlock for old, it's Matlock, like for old people, like don't fucking worry about it. It's not for you. And my people kept on like pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to get into it. So like I really was having trouble like keeping it in because I would make mistakes and shit like that. Like I actually had a VM that had access to posting on 4chan where, like it had Q hashtag Matlock in the, posting thing. So like, it shows that I could have posted as that at any time. I just chose not to because I felt like, if I went that far, it would probably put me in like it would put me in a different place than I am now. Like people could treat me differently. Not on 4chan.
Never posted it. You never posted as Q.
Not on 4chan.
You did on 8chan.
I did on 8chan though. Like I posted this Q on 8chan as like, stealing once we hacked into the trip code and got the new one, we even posted a funny message and then they would all freak out. They'd have to go remake it. This kind of went back and forth a couple of times until.
Yeah, I remember that. You never posted as the real Q, right? Or the one that, at least the one that at least
the first
Q that ended up where it is now, right?
Yeah. I didn't post as the first Q, but I would post like a funny message under the thing, and then the moderators would like delete it, and then they would have to like have a whole field day on what was going on, and then I would make a video and I'd be fucking with them talking shit, and it was just kind of a thing. So like that's farther down the line though. Like in the very first iteration, it was like into November. There's already weird shit happening, and then it was right around the 25th is when the actual change happened, and I had been getting mad at the guys because.
But hold on. Let's go back just for a second. I just want to clear the first section up, right? Because to me, there's at the beginning there before we get to the end of November, there's also two distinct voices, right?
Yes.
Like there's Micro and James. It seems like
it was James first. So James.
It was James first, and then
was
Micro,
the person.
Right?
Yeah, it was James, then Micro. So James did the posts that had no trip code, and then Micro, I believe, did the posts that had the trip code. That's why there was a small little change in between that. And then what I found, like at the very beginning of November, is that it was already making its way into like different YouTube channels and stuff that like I wasn't related to.
Tracy Beans.
Like Tracy Beans, right? And Tracy Beans is one of those characters that, I was like, all right, she might be one of the people that, we should probably give this shit up to because she's obviously putting in the most work on this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it was like, I forgot to mention something. So like when I was at Defcon, or after I was at Defcon, I do remember talking to Thomas in September and saying, hey man, you ever heard of this thing called Q? And literally, that's probably all about all I said. I just kind of like mentioned it to him, and he had no idea about it. And I was like, cool. Right. Okay, cool. And then later on, it was like probably November, and all of a sudden, Thomas has changed his script, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Q, that's one of our guys. Q's part of Cicada and all this other shit." And
Right.
immediately, that's when I was like, "Oh fuck, man, I was right. This guy's fucking he's
He
he's
was so he was trying to game jack Q basically.
yeah, he wanted to game Jack Q because all he saw was dollar signs, right? You know, like he was like, this is the next big thing. This is 10 times more popular than Cicada was, and it's because it was just a lot simpler, to be honest. You know, we used the same interactions that had been done with Gamergate and so many other things before them. I just have had experience in all of this stuff and understood it. So like I could come up with a very good plan. And I was like, guys, if you trust the plan, you follow the fucking plan, this shit's gonna
Trust the
work,
plan. Did
and
you
it's
just
gonna
say
be
that?
fucking epic. Yeah, I did
The
say
guy
that.
who invented who says Q say trust the plan? Is that what you said?
Yeah, trust the plan. And you know what?
All right, bro.
They trusted the plan, and the plan worked, right? Like we caught up
Did you
Alex
did you come
Jones.
up with it? Did you come up with any of those slogans?
Only thing I think I would have probably have said is the first one, trust the plan, because like that was the main thing that I kept on trying to force down these guys' thing. I was like, you guys don't try to add your own shit into this stuff. If you start going outside of the plan, you're gonna fuck shit up. All right. And I was like,
Yeah.
it needs to be very, very measured the way that we're doing
Yeah.
this. And on top of all of it, it was kind of weird to me because after Thomas started talking about how he was involved with Q and he was in it, you know, at the same time, I'm like, but I know you're not, but I never said that to him, right? I just kind of kept that in my own, you know, I kept it in my back pocket and I stayed away from him and his little group because, you know, we had that meeting with the Ed Batowski character. And I mean, I knew that
That's
was
the
going to
whole
get,
thing. Yeah.
that was going to be a whole thing.
But so it seems like up until you know, for the first couple of weeks, like the quality of the posts was pretty good, but then it, and I think you told me this, and I've heard this from several others as well, is that the Discord server got much busier after that initial period, and other people came into the server, including potentially either Thomas or agents of him.
Yeah, I
Do
think
you
it's
have any
agent.
information about that?
You know, personal information, no, I can only like make guesses. But you know, I had this thought that Thomas was, you know, more connected than he had made it. A lot of people knew who he was, and you know, I had a thought that probably the guys that were in that first Discord server might have known him, and it didn't. It took a long time for me to even think about it. But you know, over time, Thomas basically was like, you know, interacting with certain characters on the internet that were associated with that first Discord server, and I was like, how did he figure this shit out? You know, like how did he
Right.
get, you know, how did he get himself this far without, you know, this fat fuck? How did he fucking do this? You know, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So like I tried staying out of Cicada, and that's when, you know, that character Arturo, aka Lestat, you know, like he had came in around, I think it was like June 1st, and that's when all the video stuff started happening. And you know, me, I had to work my dick off to get into Cicada, solving all these puzzles, wasting hours and hours and hours a day online. And you know, a guy like Arturo, you know, he just kind of was, they're like, oh, you make videos, oh yeah, you want to be a part of our shit. And then now he runs around saying that he is Cicada, even though, you know, the only way I know that you could officially get into Cicada is like actually solve a puzzle, but he didn't get in that way. Like he got brought in by Thomas. And, you know, I can honestly say that he was getting used by Thomas. And I told him that in the very beginning. And this little portion is going to make more sense in a little bit. But during that November to like January period, I didn't have very much interaction with these guys, but they were all working together on something. And I just was kind of like a third party. They didn't want to like give me any thought, any mention, anything onto it. So I was like, okay, whatever. And it wasn't until I think it was like December, like the end of December, I was playing PUBG with a YouTuber named Unirock, who I thought was, you know, a pretty good friend. You know, we had been playing games together, like kind of going after different channels and stuff, getting bigger at the same time. And I was sitting there and he was talking about Q and how he knew who Q was and all this shit. And I was just like, Unirock, I like you. You're my friend. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I told him the truth. So like the first time I had ever actually let it out was just on like a random stream where I'm playing some video game with this cat. And the very next day, like he completely changed his whole interaction with me and became an enemy. Like, he made me an enemy. He was like, this Defango guy's full of shit. He said he was behind Q. That's bullshit. I'm talking to the real Q. I know who it is. And through no fault of our own, all of a sudden, I notice and find out that Thomas is also fucking talking to this guy and basically feeding him with information. So this weird shit started happening where Unirock is gonna expose who the real fucking QAnon is, and it was like, I'm like sitting there like, so who are you emailing? I wonder if I know them and shit. Like, I was messing with it because I had realized that, like, dude's not my friend. He's just there to basically use me as a springboard to get himself bigger, which happened. He got way bigger than I did, but for the most part, he was stealing other people's content, which is why his original channel got demonetized in the fucking first place. But it was like, okay.
That was at the time where it was Patriot Soapbox, right?
Yeah, so this is like during the Patriot Soapbox era, and that's
let me see if I can. Let me tell you who I think's involved, and you tell me how I'm wrong. Tracy Diaz, right?
Yeah.
Who currently is literally Mike Flynn's employee.
That's true. Correct.
Jerome Corsi.
Yes.
Coleman Rogers.
Yes.
Radix. Christina Urso, who sent me after I wrote my first article, like fucking August 2020, she sent me a cease and desist with like 10 fucking PDFs about how I was sending like Black Lives Matter and Antifa super soldiers to attack them in Virginia. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Anyway,
that's awesome.
I know, it was great. I have it fucking framed. Anyway, so it was those two, and they're in Virginia near Biss, right?
That's right. They're in Virginia. I didn't know that at the time, but I've never been able to connect Biss to those characters. Like, I still think that you guys,
me neither necessarily.
You guys take Biss and put him in this weird place that doesn't make any fucking sense. But I will tell you, Tanya and Biss are no longer together. Biss stole a house from Tanya right under her feet, stole all of her money, and I guess has been running like a real estate business scam thing with a bunch of prostitutes. It's a fucking crazy story, honestly.
Whoa,
I have Tanya wanting to come on the show and talk about this.
Hold on, I need to do, like, I don't know what the legal thing is, but
allegedly.
Defango's, yes, allegedly. Thank you. Defango's words do not necessarily represent the opinions of the host.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I don't know if it's true or not, but I got texts for days, dog.
I mean, Stephen Biss, let me be clear since we're talking, put me in a fucking lawsuit, a $75 million lawsuit against CNN in March of 2021, which was both the scariest and best day of my life. I was like, what the fuck? Stephen Biss, for representing the Flynn family, put my tweets in a lawsuit because CNN said he had something to do with QAnon after he did the fucking QAnon oath on video. It was the funniest goddamn thing I've ever seen. But
well, it's not the QAnon oath. That's an
also
oath.
Represents the worst people in the world. Fucking like everybody, like Stella Emanuel and Cash Patel, and like just.
Yeah, I created that. I think I created that monster. I do.
Oh, thanks, man.
I do like, because like if it wasn't for me trying to sue Jason Goodman, I'm pretty sure none of these people would have gotten connected together. So, like, I own it. That's why I tell people, like, I know that, QAnon, that's my fault. And I know that one day I'm going to have to, like, answer for it. But that was the whole point, is that from the very beginning, I always wanted that. Because I was like, you other people that are a part of this, like, you shouldn't be going down for this. This is why I don't want to know your names. This is why I don't want to know various things about you. That's why I've chosen all these locations, is because, like, ultimately it's supposed to be me. That's the way that I planned it, is that it's supposed to be me that goes down for all this shit. And I know a lot of people out there are like, do you really want to go down for all this shit? And I'm just like, well, honestly, I don't have a really good family life. I don't have a lot of friends.
But what do you mean go down for it, right? You're open about it. Like,
exactly.
As far as I can tell, you didn't commit any crimes. I think what you did was fucking horrible because look what happened. But
hey, I tried to stop it. We tried to stop it multiple times.
I hear you. I hear that you did that. I have my. That's also a long story about the. I think you got involved and some other people got involved in fake opposition to Q, right?
Yes.
That was supposed to look like people fighting Q, but actually wasn't. It was just there to create conflict.
I think in the first place, yes, like in early 2018, there was a lot of that. But I have to be honest, like, when I went to Posobiec in 2018 following my own plan, I figured that was going to be the end of it. And it was the opposition that just fucking hated this microchip character and hated Posobiec. And they basically just had blinders on and they wouldn't believe it. And it was partially because of that, because they didn't support me or support my story or anything of that nature, that it really kind of snowballed. Because for a small portion of time there, it was kind of dead until the guys like Bill Mitchell, what the fuck was her name? Ann Vandersteel, like Your Voice America. That when the Your Voice America crew all of a sudden got super into Q, and then that dude fucking David Hayes was into Q, and then like basically posting shit almost identical to Q and stuff like verbatim. Like,
Dave Hayes is obviously
praying medic,
a writer, like a main writer.
Yeah, he was one of the main writers, and during that era, like the end of 2018 into 2019, that's when we saw a massive shift into Q, where it started getting a lot more popular in certain pockets of the internet. Like Bill Mitchell, if you look at him, that dude's like straight up Nazi in my eyes. I mean, if you look at the people that follow his fucking show, like it's fucking HH all over the place over there. I wasn't a fan and I didn't know. And like, you're talking about this and it's like, in 2019 when MAGA coalition started coming up, like this is a really strange thing to me because like, I didn't ask for that.
Hold on. I want to talk about MAGA coalition, but I'm curious about one thing first. In August of 2018, right? There was some kind of big fucking shit. There's like
that was the Posobiec thing.
Change. That was the Posobiec thing.
That was because of the Posobiec thing.
Right. Posobiec was running around trying to pin it on Thomas. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he was trying to add Thomas into the thing a lot. And it was information that he got from Lestat. Because if you understand the story, I went to fucking Jack Posobiec, and then I just mentioned it on Twitter that I went to Jack Posobiec, and then good old fucking idiot Lestat got fueled with years worth of Thomas Schoenberger basically bullshit and his hatred towards me because I'm getting popular, I'm paying his videos online, and he ain't getting shit for it, and he was mad. That whole portion of time is that he decided that he was going to be there. Because you got to remember, I left Cicada and exploded the whole organization and kind of just like blew up Cicada, blew up how they weren't a part of Q and all this other shit. Like all March, April of 2018. And then after that whole entire Cicada group, the entirety of it went after me. So it's like the thing that happened to me when I lost all my friends, my so-called friends at Fireside, where I got fired and then I never got invited to anything ever again. And if they saw me someplace, like they would like walk away and shit like that. Like the same thing happened to me again, but digitally. The difference is that all of them were super fucking pissed. Like Thomas was pissed, Arturo was pissed because I ruined what was happening. I ruined their big thing. And they had spent a lot of time trying to make Cicada Q Cicada. And, we have different stuff that they were saying. And I bring this guy up specifically is because it's important to the story, because without him and what Lestat was doing, because he's just like, oh, I'm a nice Mexican guy that can barely speak the English. And I just like to help people and I'm great. Like that thing that he has makes it very easy for him to talk to people and get in and anywhere. He's very good at social engineering in this way. I have to work at it and be that nice guy, but like I don't like that. That's why for the most part people have a fucking negative thing about me because I'm like sandpaper. I'm like sandpaper. I will smooth you up until you shine, motherfucker. But I'm going to scratch you that entire time because like that's how I am. I'm here to make my fellow man better in every way possible. This is an operation on adjusting the consciousness scale.
I think that's arguable. I think it's arguable that you make everybody better. But I will say that you...
Okay, you're right. Pre-2017, not arguable.
No,
After 2017,
but
arguable.
But listen. I will say, like you are straightforward about your feelings. Like, and I appreciate that. I don't give a shit if personally, if people are like, you know, irascible or any of that, as long as they're authentically irascible. If somebody authentically thinks I'm some fucking Antifa, you know, cult leader and wants to scream
terrorist,
at me,
freaking terrorist,
Antifa terrorist, I'm okay with that. Like, honestly,
I would not be okay with that.
Me.
That is not something to be okay about.
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay with it to the extent that it's clear. What I hate is the fucking subterfuge, right? The people who like subvert you and just like make shit up. Like, you never did that, as far as I could tell. You never made up anything other than, you know, your opinions.
Yeah. Well, some of my opinions aren't made up. Like most of the stuff that you hear Defango saying is just me saying it. What I do as the Defango character, who doesn't exist anymore, by the way. I mean, ever since my YouTube channel goes on, Defango, he's dead. You know, I'm back to just being me. Although I call myself Kang now, but that's more of
Kang?
Kang, yeah, Kang.
Kang pirate,
yeah. But you know why I call myself Kang? It's because I fucking love Kang the Conqueror from like the Marvel movies and shit. That's cool. All. And then like the movie was coming, you know, there's Kang's gonna be coming out in the movie, so I was like, you know what, Kang, Defango, it's close enough, you know. That's all I put it in there for, you know. I needed a new Twitter account, so I gotta fucking, you know, you gotta do shit. You know, when you've been banned apparently as many times as I have, like. Literally, I've been banned off of Twitter so many times, and I just make a new account, and I just keep going. Because you know what? I disagree with them. And they're, oh, you can't make another account and all this other shit. I didn't do anything wrong. I was totally nice. I got fucking, like, taken out by people that hated me and that were fake reporting me and shit. Like, and then
hey, I recognize that.
Yeah, too. You do. I told you this shit was going to happen to you. Remember when I fucking talked to you? I posted that leaked interview on my channel. And what did I tell you in there? There's a part in there. I was like, dude, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to be just like me, but it's going to happen to you in a short amount of time because you decided to come talk to me. Because all those other people, they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to have a conversation with me. They're afraid of me. They think I'm everything that I'm not. And that's the funny thing is that I am not what I am not. I am not a charade. Like, this isn't a game. Like, Defango was a broke bitch. I'm a broke bitch. That's why it was so easy for me to play that fucking character. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is all part of this entire situation. So if we go and we look at it, it's like in August, I talked to Pasobic, and then after I talked to Pasobic, I mentioned something about it. Then Lestat, he's like, oh, I'm going to go talk to Pasobic and tell him what's really going on. And then that's where all that shit came from.
So Lestat's the one who gave Pasobic all that?
Mm-hmm. Lestat's the one that gives everybody everything. That's why he's a useful character in the play. Because, you know, like, I don't dislike him. I just hate the fact that he's still trying to lie about shit after all this time when he doesn't tell people that I was the first person to tell him after I left exactly why I left and why he should leave too because he's being used and all this stuff. He never brings that shit up. He never brings up half of the times that I was like, bro, you need to get out of there. He doesn't bring up the fact that I actually paid him money to work on a completely different thing that was unrelated to Cicada at all. And then, you know, he didn't finish the work. And I asked him to do it. You know, I didn't want to go through this entire thing with him, but I felt like I had to at that point because I had no other place to go. And ultimately, like, I still paid him the money. He still got all the shit, you know, and he's fine. And later on, I've sent him donations and stuff like that. Like, I don't hate the guy. I just want him to realize that he was used. And sure, he could go around and play the same thing that I'm doing. Like, most people don't look at me as being a person that was being used by the Cicada organization and then being ripped on. But everything that happened to him happened to me first. And I told him about it. And he helped them do it to me. And then when it started happening to him, I did not join in. I only kept it 100% about me, like, and our specific things. So he's the one that really made this Posobiec thing shitty, because once Posobiec started bringing up Schoenberger and all these people, that's how we knew, because he said he talked to them. He's the one that brought all that information to the table, all that disinformation to the table, because he was still working with Thomas and them, trying to make this their thing, because they ultimately wanted, it's always about hearts and minds, okay? Like, they want to control hearts and minds. When you're a criminal, that's how you control people. Thomas is a fucking criminal. Everybody looks at him as all these other things. I see him as what he is. I've met a lot of big criminals in my day, and I understand the way that their minds work, and that's the mind of a criminal when you look at Schoenberger. Like, he's not a musician. He just happens to be a musician. He's a criminal, though. Like, if you think about it. No, it's not allegedly. There's literal documents up the ass, arrest records, everything that are available that 100% prove that point, that Thomas, is a criminal. He is a criminal.
Okay.
And when you understand the criminal mind, then you have to change everything about what you're doing, because they're not the same as you or I. You are not a criminal. I can tell that just by talking to you, because like of how you are, the way you interact. You might be able to think that you could LARP, but you can't out LARP this right here. I'm the fucking master, I feel like. But Thomas tried to out-LARP me. He tried to out-LARP me, but he couldn't really do it, because there's something about his character. There's always something that they're trying to get, and it's usually money, and you can always pick that shit up. So, I kind of didn't really care. I gave up basically after August. I basically was in a really bad place. I had lost all of my friends. I could honestly say I was probably suicidal, and it was bad. And it wasn't the only reason that I think that, nothing really ever happened is because like I got surrounded by a new group of people that, understood my plight. Actually, I'd always go to these festivals. So for the first time, I finally actually used, a real therapist. And, this girl, she was a big therapist. She's, done a lot of therapy for a lot of people. I mean, who's that guy there was a guy that, died. He was like a big musician. She was his therapist. So, and she knew a lot about what was going on with him. And, she would talk to me about all this stuff. And honestly, like, they helped me along. And she's like, you're putting too much stuff on yourself in this situation. She was like, you said it yourself. It's going to take a long time. And she's like, you can't just let yourself get stuck. Yeah, maybe you don't have a lot of money right now. Things are looking bleak and grim because, everybody's left you. She's like, but the reality is that you're still here. There's still all kinds of shit that's, you could do. And she was like, and you can make stuff better. You just have to, want to do it. And once I realized that, I've been through a lot of shitty stuff, I got thrown out of the house by my mom and shit. I barely met my dad, like not that long ago. I've had a hard life, but I don't wear it on my sleeve because it's not who I am. I just keep moving forward and doing shit because that's all you can really do when you're me. I've done a lot of different stuff. I've met a lot of crazy people. For the most part of it, people are just like, that's fucking insane. You did not just drive, somewhere and this happened. And I'm like, you know what? You don't have to believe it, but that's what happened. It's what happened. So I looked at the next couple of months were really difficult for me. So I was just going to festivals and trying to like make money here and there. And, just kind of like, leaning on my supporters, the very few that I had left. And, it was looking pretty grim, but I decided that,
one of those supporters is Tanya, right?
Yeah. Well, Tanya's always been one of those supporters, but, even at that point, Tanya was not a fan of mine anymore. At that point, she had been talking shit about me and she stopped making donations. Like she was gone out my life. She went out the window with Thomas, basically. So like I cut that April of 2018, I cut all of those weirdos out basically like cold turkey and just kind of went on. And it wasn't until sometime in 2020 that Tanya showed back up again, and immediately I was like, oh shit, what the fuck's gonna happen now? And she was like apologetic, and it ended up she ended up coming back into her own, and she's helped me out here and there, if my car broke down or something and I literally have no money in my bank account, I could probably ask her to send me something and she would. And I'd be
Right.
appreciative and she wouldn't ask for it back. But it's not like I'm these fucking assholes that are like taking the money and going and buying drugs and doing all this shit. It's most of the time I'm like, fuck, my car just broke down and I got nothing. So I had to like make do. So 2019, I really started focusing on actually trying to do work, but I couldn't, I was just kind of frozen in my house for most part. So I was just playing video games. And it's really sad when you think about it, is that, I always just wanted to be popular on the internet being a gamer. And I could never get popular on the internet being a gamer. It was impossible. But I could be popular on the internet just sitting in front of my fucking internet browser pulling up links. Like that makes you way popular apparently, but my actual goal of becoming a game streamer just never happened.
Yeah. And right. And you learn pretty quickly that if you do that, right, if you're pulling links and talking about shit in a negative way, right, in a
negative or positive, doesn't matter.
But mostly but negative stuff gets more views, it gets more attention, right, it gets more engagement.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make a point about like you're trying to like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth either, but you're trying to be a personality because you want to, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. Lots of people do, but the way, but you got kind of drawn towards this pattern, right, where talking about the stuff that you want to talk about is not super popular, but talking about this other shit is, especially if I do it in a way that is dramatic, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
And it feels to me like you got kind of pulled along by both your own sort of internal motivations and others taking advantage of those, right? They knew your motivations to get popular, and they took advantage of that.
They took advantage of that. They also took advantage of my need for recognition because they found out, what I was making at Firesight and knew that I was basically getting fucked. And, it was whatever at that time, like I let it happen because like at that point, I had just left culinary school. I was working as a chef at a really big restaurant. And, it's like one day they just kind of showed up out of the blue and were like, hey man, want to come work for us over at our shop? We're big enough to actually be able to hire you. And that's how it happened. But, back then I didn't look at it as like, a weird thing. But now I realize that it was a really weird thing that had happened because,
right.
They took me out of my new career and back into the career that, I didn't want to have no more part of computers, dude. Like after Ninja Video got taken down and ReleaseNet got taken down, I was like, fuck. I gotta get off of these things before I end up in fucking jail or something. And, the Homeland Security had taken all of my computers and stuff. So, like I was just basically like,
wait, hold up. Why so I think you've told me this story, but for the benefit of others, why did Homeland Security take your computers?
So there used to be these online websites where you could go and watch movies and videos and stuff, kind of like Netflix and all the different streaming sites that are out now. Well, there used to be this one website called Ninja Video where you could go watch anything, like whether it just came out or was, put out like in 1975. It was basically just the biggest catalog of pirate media that was streamable, and it utilized Mega Upload as one of the main purveyors to, hold all of the content. It was basically the big purveyor. So like, as I was working, volunteering for the Obama campaign, I was also moonlighting, helping operate the site. Like what I can say is that I was just like I was totally just making images and stuff for the site, and in no way did I ever get associated to any illegal uploading or downloading or any of that crap right there. Like I gave all of my stuff.
So let me ask you a question. Do you know Kim.com?
I've talked to him. Like I used to be in a Skype chat a long time ago as Defango when he was basically under investigation for all of that stuff. I'm sure my name will pop up in there somewhere. But yeah, we used to talk to Kim.com about basically things that were associated with hosting, stuff that could get him put into jail. Basically, where the real reason, because he lies and says that he wasn't really wanting all these people to do, but he would always be in direct contact with like the different purveyors of these different pirate sites. And I was in the scene. That's what we call the piracy. It's just called the scene. I was a scene kid for a really long time, so like I know a lot of these different hacking groups. I know a lot of the different pirate groups. I've seen them come up and I've seen them go.
So we're hopping back a little bit in history, but we skipped over the LARPs, right? FBI Anon, Meganon, and I'm particularly interested. The Meganon comes to mind because my best information is that Meganon was a collaboration between Tracy and Kim.com.
Yeah, that's what people say.
And so I'm just curious, like in your conversations with Kim, did like LARPing and this sort of, narrative creation and radicalization, frankly, did any of that come up?
Well, you got to put it in perspective. So like these Skype conversations were in the 2007 to 2009 period. Far before any of this other stuff happened. Like this is
totally
years and years ago. So it's like he didn't know who I was. I never met him or anything like that. I just knew who we were talking to because it said .com. Like whenever somebody was in the chat .com, that's fucking Kim, right? So we were there, and honestly, it was Hannah Bashara that was really the one that was friends with him because she's the one that went down for everything that went down at Ninja Video. Like, I was always very clear to them that they shouldn't be making money and profiting on this stuff. Like, I was like, yo, if we want this thing to go on, we got to live in the gray area. But people got greedy. And basically, other administrators of the website were not telling anybody that they were actually getting paid. So like part of the way I guess that the piracy scene was working and the way that they eventually got taken down was very stupid, is that Hannah Bashara had a mega upload account with the name Ninja Video connected to all of her shit. And inside the account, she had uploaded a few different like pirated videos or whatever that over time had garnered like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it was like $200,000 or something was just sitting in the account. She never cashed it out or did anything with it because she followed what I told her to do, at least a little bit before, things went bad. But basically, like that act right there is what got a lot of the guys caught up, because basically they were uploading the movies to Mega Upload, and then they would have these gigantic accounts with all this money in, and then they were putting ads all over the place, and that's how they were actually making money to keep the site alive and running and shit like that. So that's eventually how they all got caught up. And when you look up Ninja Video like in Google and shit, like you can read all of this stuff and how it actually went down, and you'll realize that I'm not making this stuff up. It's just that they did stupid things. Like you can't, if you're gonna.
So that's, to be clear, that's when Homeland Security came and got your computers.
Yeah, that was
when it all went bad.
Yeah, when it all went bad, they actually hit other people first. Like it wasn't like they came to me in a weird way or anything like that. I think it was like 2010, and right. I had been living in Tempe, Arizona at one house, and me and my boys, we were all moving to a new place in like downtown Tempe, right next to Mill Avenue. It was like going to be a big move. So like we had all been moving everything in, and I'm like sitting on the fucking front step smoking a cigarette, and I see a black car pull up, and in the window I see a little sticker that says Department of Homeland Security, and then I got the fucking, there's it's got the license plates and shit. And out walks this dude in a fucking suit, looking shady as fuck. It was just like, I was like, oh fuck, like I thought it was all over. I was like, I'm fucked. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, I'm not. You're good. And this guy walks up and he's like, hello, Mr. Chavez. And I was just like, hey man, how's it going? Like, what can I do for you? And he was like, I'd like to talk to you
could
a
I
little
help
bit.
you secure the homeland or anything?
Well, he was like, I would like to talk to you about ninjavideo.net. And I was like, oh, really? Well, I have some things to say. I just, uploaded, little thumbnails and stuff that I had made or whatever. But, and I was like active on the forums and stuff. And I knew people in there who were like, what do you need to know? And he was just like, well, we were thinking about trying to, like take a look at some of the things that you might have, chats and stuff. And I was just like, well, actually, you want to come in real quick? Come inside real quick? And I was like, I've just moved in. You obviously know that because you see the moving truck. But I was like, here's my box. And it was like, it had my laptop and a bunch of hard drives and just like all of my technology shit. Like my phone, like I throw my phone in there and I just like hand him the box. And I was just like, well, this is everything. All the hard drives, that's the laptop that I've been using for like the last 5 years of shit. That's everything right there. If you have any questions or anything, or if you guys are going to come and arrest me or anything, that's totally cool. But, there it is. And this guy was like, you're just giving all this stuff up. And I was just like, well, yeah, like, I don't want you to have to come back here with like a warrant and shit and, make all kinds of noise. I mean, if you guys want to know what I've been up to, if you're going to come get me, then I'm going to give you everything and that you need to get me. Because at that point I was like, I'm fucked. I'm fucked anyway, so it doesn't matter. I knew when Hannah got down, I figured I was like, yeah, you're next, boy. You're fucking next. So I just decided that. I was like, I'm gonna give it all up, and then I signed up for culinary school. I was going to culinary school, so it's like I did the Phi Psi 10.
All your shit?
They took all my shit. He took the whole box. We asked some questions and stuff. I ain't no rat, so it's not like I was ratting on anybody. But, in my mind in 2010, I was like, well, you guys probably already have copies of everything that I've been saying for the last couple of years. Like, I understand how the internet works. I mean, I know how the Patriot works. I was like, you guys have all this stuff already. And I was like, but my only goal here is that, maybe they will go less hard on me if I just give it up without them asking for it. And, like, they took the stuff, and then I just never really heard anything after that. It's not like
you didn't get it back.
But I've never gotten it back, and it's really sad to me because there's a lot of bitcoins. There was a lot of bitcoins on that shit. There was a lot of fucking bitcoins.
Yeah, you told me that once, and I'm like, wow, because a lot of bitcoins is a lot of. Now
money. It's a lot of money. Back then it was nothing, but now it's
it was just lying around on your hard drive and you didn't even think about it when you gave it up, right?
Yeah,
it was like a couple bucks.
I just was like I didn't really think about it. I just figured, I figured I would get it back. Okay, I figured that they would give me my shit back. It's probably sitting in Echelon somewhere, and fuck them, whatever, dude. I don't care. I can't think about it because, what? It's just another thing that makes me depressed because I'm such a fucking moron.
I know. I think we talked about this. It's like when I sold my fucking Apple stock when it dipped in 98. fucking moron.
Fucking moron. All right. So, anyway, at that, moving on, this is
so just on the Anons real quick on those LARPs, right? So my feeling is that there was Tracy and Kim.com collaborating on Meganon because it talked like Tracy, but all its shit was Kim, like all its like attitudes and shit. So, what do you think about FBI Anon?
FBI Anon was a really weird thing because I remember when it first came up, like. I was just like, I think I made some videos on it, honestly, because like I literally saw it happening on 4chan, right? Like I used to just like go to 4chan on my fucking channel.
Yeah. And it went on for a while, right?
Yeah. And it was right around the same time as Pizzagate, because like Pizzagate is a thing
that's when
that
it started. Yeah.
yeah, like when Pizzagate started, it was like I can't remember if it was FBI Anon or Pizzagate, but they were like running at the same time and they were bolstering each other. It was very strange, and I've heard from a lot of different people that
So
this person.
so Pizzagate and FBI Anon were interacting.
Yeah, well, they were like running at the same time. Like they were both happening
Right.
on 4chan and they were both happening at the same time, talking about the same shit. And a lot of people were trying to put them together. So if you think about when Edgar Madison Welch went to Comet Pizza and, like shot the fucking place up and shit, like that was already after almost like an entire year of all of these weird LARPs and shit coming forward. And I think that
Right.
it was weird to me because I wasn't with the cicada people. Like I was making videos about Pizzagate, trying to debunk Pizzagate, and I tried all kinds of different ways. Like I made a video called "Oh my God, Pizzagate is real," and then in the video I was like, "Dude, you guys are fucking dumb. That's Pizzagate shit is completely bullshit or whatever." Like, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, come
Right.
back to Earth, bitches! Like, it pissed me off because I was watching people like Tracy Beans and all these other YouTubers pushing the bullshit and going sky high, like getting subscribers and all this other shit. And then here's dumbass me, like being like, you guys, like, this is clearly fucking fake. And here's all the reasons why, like, here's where it started, the actual website, like, I had everything about it. And still, like, people weren't happy with that. They didn't want to hear that. They wanted to hear something else. And it's like, if you think about it, when FBI Anon came up on October 29th, QAnon started on what was like October 31st or something. There's a very quick
28th
or 28th. Yeah.
20, I mean,
no, it's the 28th.
yeah.
Was it? They were
No,
like almost the same day, basically, which
Like
is really
first,
strange. If you really think about it.
Didn't FBI Anon come up in 2016?
Yeah, it was in 2016, but the date, like October, seems to be
Oh, I see.
synonymous with this. And if you look back, there's other things that have happened in the October period that seem to be there. And I think it has something to do with people going to school and then basically being burnt out after getting back into the classroom and shit, and then just looking for something else to actually look into. And I mean, in 2016, the disinformation flow was super ridiculous. It was all coming off of 4chan, and then, kind of being cultivated in some places on 8chan, and Reddit was another big place where a lot of this stuff was like coming together and happening. And the way that I saw it is that when we did the Q thing, I was thinking back to what I had understood about how each of these individual LARPs had been operating, like Mega Anon, like FBI Anon, because they all had a very simple way about them and how they were posting. They had already created this like named Anon fanfic thing that has been going on. So to me, it looked like a very clear way of utilizing what was already there, changing it slightly to affect a different way. And I mean, in the beginning, go ahead.
So FBI Anon, it was very specific, right? Like it was anti-Semitic. It brought up cicada a couple times, right?
Yes.
And it was, but it was also good, mostly. Right? Like it did some stupid shit sometimes, but it was mostly pretty fucking smart and effective at being semi-believable, and also successfully radicalizing people. And so, to me, it seemed like a professional doing it, or someone who had, experience, like a microchip or somebody who really knew how to LARP like really well. But it also seemed like somebody who actually was involved somehow in the government. Like it seemed more authentic than most of them. I'm just curious what your thoughts are around, who might have been behind that. I don't think it was Thomas. I don't think he has the capability of LARPing like that.
No, I don't think he does. He didn't have the capability of LARPing like that. If it's not email, he can't fucking do it. Mm-hmm. I know. I was in a fucking hotel room with that guy for, a couple of months being all like, hey, can you do this? And like really understanding and studying his computer habits because, I used to teach people how to use computers and shit like that. So like I could tell like somebody's proficiency after about 5 seconds of watching them and how they do
Right.
things. Just asking them, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Like I'll ask you to do 3 different things and I could probably tell exactly, like how long you've been on a computer, what your capabilities are, and if you're a threat or not. And
Right.
Thomas didn't have that. He didn't have that. But what Thomas did have when I met him and, going through this stuff, because remember, FBI Anon's 2016. So, like, do I have any knowledge of him or any of his people being there? No, because I hadn't broken into that thing. Like, when I hit this cicada thing in 2017.
No, yeah.
So, when I look at FBI Anon, I saw like it was an operation, but to me it looked like it was an operation that was getting put together by a specific group of people that kind of seemed to be associated with like the likes of Robert David Steele, because he was on the radar for that one a lot, because a lot of the stuff, just like with QAnon, a lot of the stuff that RDS was saying was kind of stuff that was coming out in the FBI Anon.
Why do you think that is? Why
Because
do you think that is? Because he had like adrenochrome, like all that shit, right? Like he was OG Russian propaganda. I mean, all that stuff just goes straight back to Russian propaganda, right? It's just renaming stuff. And RDS was like really good at repackaging that into shit like, fucking child Satanists on Mars or whatever, like all of this crazy stuff. How the fuck did all of that work end up being the DNA for Pizzagate, FBI, and QAnon? What's up with that?
Well, I think it's just because like the way that became part of my mythos is because I had already like watched what these guys were doing and tried to locate different aspects of their operation that I thought could be very similar. And the reasoning that I put behind trying to make it very similar to these other things was because I was hoping like, this is like using the time stone, like shifting through all kinds of different like possible futures and trying to think about what would be the best probability of me having success. And I figured if I utilize the same kind of operation that seems to have already worked pretty fucking good and adjust simple parameters of how they did it to make it more effective. And if you really look at like the way FBI Anon posted, they would make like a post, but then people would ask a bunch of fucking questions and then he would answer all of the questions. They would answer all the questions, I should say, because I don't know if it's he or she, but they would answer all those damn questions. And that's how it would go. Like if you go look at all these, it was always like, ask me anything. And it was strange to me when I believe that we were it was when I was in the hotel with Thomas, I think in 2019, when he brought me into the fold with another group, not Patriot Soapbox, but American Intelligence Media. Like that's one of the channels that they ran.
Gabriels, right?
Yeah, the Gabriels. So those two right there were during the time that I went and talked to them about QAnon. I had gone back and started looking at their videos and stuff, and they were one of the only groups of people that seemed to have actually had like a direct email AMA with this FBI non-character, and it was them, and there was this other channel called Veritas Libertas,
of course, yeah.
Both of those channels were basically interacting with Thomas and basically getting information. And then there's emails out there that show like Thomas was involved in the 2017s, 2018s, and the 2019s, like kind of putting him in the position of being around that character. Right. And when I was in the hotel room with him, like I was trying to get as much information as close as possible before I got out so I could like, make a clean break and get the fuck away. And that's what I did. But during this time, I'm spending time asking him about these different people, and he's like really opening up to how his operation actually works. And I'm really watching, the email commander, because that's what it was. It's just emails, man. He just emailed people like crazy. And that's how it's either email or on the fucking phone. And this guy would spend probably 8 hours a day on the phone with various different people planning and talking about what they were going to be doing and how they were trying to build stuff up. And it saw, to me, I think that it was more or less probably the Gabriels and the people that were involved with Victorus Libertas working through Thomas, who was acting as like an intermediary to the actual person that either was FBI or not, or was another one of those like jacking situations where FBI Anon started, where he was kind of just on 4chan doing AMAs, but then all of a sudden FBI Anon's doing, like directed like AMA style interviews, like where they're answering questions for YouTubers. And obviously that looks fucking strange as shit if you really think about it. Because number one, well, what's the fucking email? Who are you getting this email from, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
who's sending you the email? Like you know who it is now, right? Like, because it's not that hard for people to figure that out. So
yeah, American intelligence media is also interesting because they're super involved in the whole IAM thing.
Yes, I was involved in the IAM thing too. I got into the IAM thing way before I knew any of these people. But to me, it was always.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, I remember it was probably like around 2008. I was like searching a lot on the internet, trying to figure out about like different spiritualities. Like, I'm a Catholic. I'll be a Catholic till I die. Once you're Catholic, you can't be not. You can act like you're not Catholic, but according to the way the Catholic religion works, is that even if I am not Catholic, after I die, I'm probably going to go to hell based on all of the shit. So, like, I always try to treat myself as Catholic, but, I look at it as like trying to figure out all these different religions. And I spent a long time learning about everything that I could find. And I was going through all kinds of conspiracy theories. And I did fall upon the I am present stuff, the Saint Germain stuff. So, like, I had supreme knowledge about all of that stuff way like 10 years before I even met these guys. Like, I was well aware of bibliocapades and crystallinks.com and a bunch of other spots where a lot of this stuff, like this metaphysical, we live in a simulation, or you inside of you is the indwelling spirit, a fragment of the creator, and then that's the part of your I am presence.
It all comes down to basically you are God, right?
Yeah, you are God.
Instead of there being an external presence, which creates the morality that you're supposed to live in, it puts the onus on the individual, right? It's like, at the end of the day, you are God, and here's a bunch of hocus pocus around it.
That's not exactly how it works, but it's more like that's kind of.
Exactly, but
it's trying to externalize. It's trying to take the externalized view of God and put an internal component to it that is a logical way for an individual who keeps themselves separated from what they would call the unity of the spirit. Because ultimately, like, I know a lot of people argue, okay, if God exists, then like everything that's out there is a part of him. And then there's other people like, no, God is not a part of anything that we live in. He lives outside of it, the bubble, basically. And the I am presence is basically a directional viewpoint that says, hey, in its simplest form, it's like, guess what? There's a God. And then everybody's like, okay, there's a God. Gotcha, whatever. And that God is a part of you. There's a way that the conversation works. There's a piece of you that is, part of the much grander whole that powers you. And what they're trying to say is that you're supposed to be listening to that part. So it's like listening to your conscience. It's like, it's giving people giving people an internal space for them to create a grander connection to this unity that is existing all around us that may seem like chaos, but we only exist in a very small sliver of that chaos that it's never going to we'll never truly be able to understand it, because we just can't physically visualize something that large and grandiose. We can only look at a picture and think about it. And this I am stuff has been around for a really long time. There's a lot of cults.
Hey Manny, let me interrupt you 1 second. I gotta hit the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, no worries.
We'll cut this out. Sorry.
Yeah, cut it out. This like anchor thing is pretty weird. How do we the I am. It kind of makes me wonder. Street gross. Ironic that Tanya and Nora are best buddies with RDS and James Alefantis all along. Tanya's only friends with Nora.
Hey, buddy. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good, dude.
I was trying to hold it as long as I could, and uh, I am super interested in that in the IM stuff. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'd love to get back into it.
Well,
So
you know that IM stuff, like where I came into it was actually through something called the 1111.
I remember this. I
The
remember this.
And honestly, like to me, it was never anything that was like nefarious. It seemed after I did all of my research or whatever, it was the one thing in my like look that seemed to be very crazy, but also like very very simplistic in like what it was doing. And I still get these emails
And
all
it
the
was
time.
benign. It was pretty benign, right? I remember somebody coming up to me at a party when I was like in like maybe 18 or something. You know, fucking long time ago. And he was like, "Have you heard about 1111? Once you hear about it, you'll never forget it." And sure enough, like every fucking 5 minutes, it seemed like there was an 1111 all over the place, right? I mean, that was sort of the basic
That's
thing,
your
wasn't it?
that's your basic premise. So like the 1111 was a spiritual midway. So like I've always taken myself as to being, uh a more than cosmic being. I fight evil wherever evil comes, and I find evil all the time. Sometimes I used to think when I was a kid, like I was trying to be a priest and do all these things. Some bad things happened with some child abuse, and then I decided maybe I'm not going to do it from within the church. But I've always found myself to be very, like, I guess, spiritual, but at the same time, like I believe in ghosts, and I'm trying to figure out all this stuff. And I came up with this 1111 midwayers thing, and it was a very very strange thing. It was like a message board. It was a PHP message board called the 1111 Angel message board, and it was this guy who recently died. He was from Australia, and basically he had like him and a bunch of other people built together this grandiose history, which is basically like an addendum to the Bible. So it's like you have the Bible, and then this stuff that they talk about is like surrounding the Bible, and is supposed to be like at a certain point in your life after you hit this 1111 thing, it's supposed to be like a wake up call or an awakening call that activates that indwelling presence inside of you and tries to push you to doing better and better things. And if you go through all of this, it really does talk about like mainly becoming a better person. But where it really gets strange is that it's all based upon something called Orantia and or Aratna, depending on how you want to call it. And that book was a book that came out somewhere in between 1924 or 1955. And not many people know who wrote it, but it was a foundation, a United States based foundation that published the book. And basically, it was like supposed to be your nature with God and, everything that you were missing or everything that's missing from it. And for a lot of people,
It was kind of another theosophy branch, right? In a way.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
like a
it
theosophy
used,
branch. A
yeah,
guy named
it wasn't I am, but but it used, that basic Bailey, Blavatsky kind of framework, right?
something like that. It was like, according to the history, there was a guy named William Sadler in 1911 who was a physician in
Right.
Chicago that actually had started into this whole thing where they were trying to. He was basically having a problem with his wife where she would start sleeping really deeply and breathing abnormally. They couldn't find a medical condition, and sometimes he couldn't wake her. And throughout this, it's like she started breaking out into just saying weird stuff and all of a sudden, like she was saying stuff that like she was a student visitor, she was a spiritual being, and all of a sudden, they spent a long time, stopped being physicians and started putting all of this stuff down and basically wrote it into these books that are supposed to like give you a better understanding of your connection to like everything. And throughout the 1111 midwayer thing, it basically, the way that it discusses this I am presence is that not everybody is a part of it. Like everybody has the capability of being a part of it, but there are certain people that are born into the world who have it activated in such a way that this kind of thing will call to them because it's trying to enact God's plan through the people, like acting as a part of the grand design, like Illuminati type shit, where these different people are trying to collectively change the way Earth is, because a long time ago there was a planetary rebellion that destroyed all of the great civilizations in the world. Many of the things that we think that certain people built weren't built by them. It's saying that there was actually a huge cataclysm that had happened before because of a rebellion of this guy named Lucifer, and basically we're living in the aftermath of this thing, and their whole entire operation was based into it. And it's really funny if you've ever watched into the QAnon stuff. A lot of the QAnon people also follow the Aranta Foundation, and a lot of the main YouTubers, especially, what was his name? Oh, fuck. It was Jordan Sather. If you actually go back and like were able to watch some of his original videos, his little bookshelf, you could see the Aranta book sitting right on his shelf. So,
Sather is super interesting character, right?
Yes.
Like, there's a whole show on that fucking guy because obviously he's an expert at conspiracy theories, both creating them and historically, right? Like Correct. He is well read on all that shit. He has made himself into fucking extremely good, like, psyop professional, basically. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that he's got those historical records. What's more interesting to me is that it seems like he got invited to Discord servers super early.
Yes.
Like that seems clear to me that he was, if Q1 is basically just James and Micro, then, Q2 is when more people got invited in. Mm-hmm. And, Q got a little bit wonky and before it started getting really fucked up at the end of November. And so I was just curious what your impressions were about this guy, because it seems to me he's been part of it all the way through.
Well, yeah, I was always trying to actually get him on my show, actually, because like for the longest time, like he wouldn't talk to me, but like he was one of the main characters that I was seeing like making the most play outside of Tracy Beans. Like he was really just getting a lot of folks out there. He was the first person to even mention James Brower's name being associated with QAnon.
And that's part of the reason I'm so interested. I mean, for a couple of things. One, he went on Roger Stone's show like fucking December 8th, 2017 or something like that, to push Q, specifically to push this shift from 4chan to 8chan. He was promoting literally, hey, Q moved from 4chan to 8chan. Make sure you go see it over here, right? So that to me was a big tell. And also, exactly what you said, where he's pointing at his fucking whiteboard and it says James Brower on it. Like, why the fuck is this guy, like, why? What is this?
I could
never.
Do you
have any idea?
I mean, for the longest time, I knew that he was a member of the Reddit. I knew he was obviously on the fucking chans and shit all the time. So it seemed like he put himself into a position where he got really big on it, and then he was interacting with Beans and the other people that were associated with like the early Reddit and like moving it over to 8chan. So I think that he was literally working with them. And then it took me a long, long time to actually try to get him on an interview. And getting him on the interview and talking to him finally, like I discovered, I was asking him very specific questions, and it definitely seemed like he was a member of like some specific Discords, like the Anime Right, that really how he got pulled into all of this stuff. And then once he started that he was getting play, he just kind of went all in. And it was him and then that other kid, Dustin Krieger, that really, like, both of them had a very similar, like, aspect. And I think for the most part, it was like Sather,
Did he
Beans,
turn
and
into
all.
Nemos?
Yeah, that's Nemos. Dustin Krieger is
Yeah,
Nemos. So,
yeah.
like,
I
him.
just I've met. We're talking a lot of inside baseball here, and 99.9% of people in the world will have no fucking idea what we're talking about. But even I was a little unclear about Dustin Nemos's name. So yeah, I definitely see both Dustin and Dustin is really interested in all of this my sort of shit. You know, it's interesting. And Jordan Sather's got some very interesting friends on the left in the journalism community that I find to be very suspect. To be perfectly honest with you, so I apologize for interrupting. What did he seem like on your show? What do you find out?
He just seemed like he was aware of a lot of things. It seemed like he was in the know and in places where he could have been in the know, but it was very clear to me that he wasn't involved in making the actual post based on the way that he was talking and like his understanding of things. It was to me like he was more or less just kind of like in a lucky spot where he started talking about this cute thing. He got really into it. Then he found himself like being involved with some of the other people that I think were actually posting at the current time, you know, Beans and her little crew. And that right there is when he kind of stayed with the group, but he went on in his own way. And him
Right.
and Dustin Nemos did kind of the same thing where
Yeah.
they didn't exactly follow the same line as Beans and them, but they came up with their own versions of the post to deliver to their people. And if you watch what Sather and Dustin did, then you start to realize later on when Bill Mitchell and Praying Medic and Ann Vandersteel and that whole crew started getting into it, they were just copying what they had already seen because they saw it was very successful. Having a multiple different venues that people were basically just reading Q posts and then, you know, coming up with their own bullshit. It was designed for that to be viable for those channels. Because
Yep.
remember, I'm a YouTuber, so I wanted to make sure that it was open ended to the point where, you know, people would start Googling shit and getting to different places. And for
Well,
each of them,
that's the thing. It's googly and it's interesting what you said before. Is like it struck me as like the LARPs used to be Ask Me Anything, right? Which is like a bunch of individuals asking the LARP and the LARP answering. But with Q, it sort of went the other way. It was
you're
like
asking
ask
questions.
them, and it was ask them anything, right?
Mm.
And that was what got the apophenia and the fucking got the frenzy going because they're trying to solve these puzzles that don't
There
have
aren't actually
solutions.
puzzles. And this is something that we saw during Cicada. Like, this is a phenomenon that you see all the time in every little puzzle like thing. I've been through enough of them to realize that for the most part, there's like 5% of the people that are out there that actually know anything about like doing anything. And then the rest of them are just trying to sound smart. So
Yep.
they're doing the weirdest shit. You know, it's like how the Q clock got born. You know, how were these guys that use gematria to break down names and shit and be all like, oh, the numbers, they're the same. Oh my God. And I'm just like, okay, so
Right.
like, what does that fucking mean? It's just like, that's not a full encryption, you know, like, so how do you take those numbers and like, you know, determine shit out of it? Well, the number 42, it means this, the number 3 means that. You know, once you start to see that if you ask people questions, you give them an open, like, you give them open spot to say whatever the fuck they want. And on 4chan, they're anonymous. So they literally, to them, there is zero recourse on any stupid question or any stupid bullshit that you see. And then there's another part to this is that there's people on the chans who are just fucking trolls and will see something that's totally fucking bullshit and then just say, huh, this could be really fun. This could be really
Yep.
funny. And then they on purpose, you know, ask questions or participate in stuff because they want to get it bigger so that it can be funnier to them. in the long run,
Yeah.
because they don't think the same way that regular people think. To them, it's all about the lulz. They're just trying to get a laugh out of it. And if some named motherfucker calling himself QAnon's out here, saying some shit, they're not only half of them are going to be asking, answering the questions, and the other half are just going to be posting random bullshit just to keep it going because they're having a good time because nothing else is going on. And, once you understand that part of the culture, it's like Chan culture is very key to how all this stuff works. Is because, Gamergate got big because of the Chans. Why did it get big out of the Chans? Not because the Chans are a bunch of toxic motherfuckers. I mean, they are, but it got big because everybody on the Chans was like, wait a minute, holy shit, this person is onto something. We're out here reading all this stuff, and we realize that somebody's fucking lying, and it's not us. And then when you're trying to be somebody like Zoe, who's out there being all like, oh, I'm the fucking victim and shit. But in actuality, when you go back to her time on fucking Something Awful and how bad of a troll she was, and part of the groups of, people that were actually going after people and making them commit suicide and shit, like, if you're in the Chans and you're in the know and you follow these people, that's why all those guys were actually fucking pissed. So half of them, maybe even, probably more like a quarter of them actually knew the Something Awful stuff. And then the rest of them, another quarter of them were just some newbies that had just never seen anything and just wanted to be a part of the party. And then there was the other half that was literally just, the trolls are like,
look,
something to do.
I'm not gonna like sort of sit by on the Zoe Quinn was not a victim thing. Listen, I don't give a fuck what she did before. It doesn't matter to me. I don't give a fuck if she trolled people. Does not matter what they did and continue to do to that person. This is not acceptable in any fucking world.
I don't agree.
Now,
I don't agree with them. I'm just telling you how it works.
I understand. I'm just trying to make sure that for my sake, like I don't know Zoe's past, but the point of this whole thing is her past doesn't fucking matter.
Well,
you should not target. You should not get thousands. And by the time fucking Milo was done with it, like millions and millions of people targeting somebody in order to bring them down for any fucking reason.
I agree. But like, look at Joe Rogan.
There's no she deserved it, right?
Well,
what
did Joe Rogan deserve it?
Yeah.
He deserved it. Even though even though all of that stuff was in the past.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the past. It was the present. It was him fucking amplifying anti-vax shit.
Oh, that's what it. Well, I mean, before that though, like when they bring up him bringing up the N-word and stuff, like in 2012 and 2008.
I don't agree with canceling people for shit they said 15 years ago. I just think that's stupid. Like
do you agree with canceling a musical artist that is found to be a pedophile and has been utilizing his musical thing to, basically prey on young women?
Yes.
That's in his past. It's in his past.
Different.
And it's different.
It's different. It's fucking different.
Well, I just want to be clear.
Physically victimizing somebody.
Yeah, I don't agree what happened to her. I was just telling you the TLDR on how all of that shit got started. Like
no, and that's okay. I just and I'm not trying to pin anything on you. I just like Gamergate is something that's important to me for a number of reasons.
It should be,
and because it really is the fundamental model for all of this, for targeting people.
Correct.
Whoever they are, whether it's Zoe or fucking any of the other dozens and dozens of people who had their fucking lives destroyed
by
a bunch of fucking incels on 8chan.
That's Fred, dude. That was Fred.
But
man.
I understand that. Understand that.
If you look at that situation, like, and how it changed from when it went from 4chan to 8chan. So when it moved and Fred decided that he was going to bring it on and make it happen, like, it burns me to this day that when I watch that fucking HBO documentary and I see that, freaking dude getting saved by the other dude, extraditing him out of the country before he goes to jail for the
Oh
rest of
my
his
God.
life and shit,
Give me a break.
and then they're trying to be all like, yeah, see, this guy's super good for helping this guy out. But then I'm sitting here going like, this is a fucking guy that did all this heinous shit. And it doesn't matter that he's in a fucking wheelchair or any of that shit. Like, that shit was the most fucked up thing. And that was one of my main goals, is to get 8chan gone, because I hated that fucking place, man. And I remember when I talked to him, Fred, and we had a conversation, and he thought it was going to be like an interview where I was going to go on live. And I was like, no, dude, I'm just sitting here talking to you on the phone, telling you what you're going to do to fix this shit. And I was like, my goal for QAnon was always to have 8chan shut down. You should have shut that shit down a long time ago. But no, you sold it to these other fucks, and then you still helped them do all of this shit. And now, you know what? You're going to change your ways, and you're going to go and you're going to fucking do your penance. And that's what I told him. I was like, this is your penance. I'm the priest. You're going to go out there. You're going to fight this thing with every fucking tooth and nail that you still have, like every ounce of your body is going to be involved in this. And you know what? You're going to be good for it afterwards. I was like, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have to live with what you did. And I was like, I appreciate you going out there and, finally standing up for something and trying to stop this shit. But even at that point, he was still spreading disinformation about the situation. And, this whole Ron is Q thing still comes from him.
And now, look, we're approaching 2.5 hours, which is an hour and a half over.
That's fine.
This conversation is fucking awesome. And I'd love to follow it up, basically, if that would work with you. Like,
that's totally fine.
Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't hit yet that I think is really important.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Magaco or any of that shit.
Any of that stuff, or Q Slayers, or
we didn't. All that. We're only up to 2019 right now, my dude.
Oh, I know, bro. But I just don't. I don't want to burn you out, and I got
you gotta go take a shit.
If you think no, I don't. I did have to take a leak before, which I will have cut out of the broadcast, but then brought it back up for no particular reason again.
I'm just messing with you.
Listen, I want to close on the, since you brought up Fred, since you brought up disinformation, the New York fucking Times, I'm going to rant a second, fucking printed the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, these two little, one a startup and one like a scientist in France, like, did some fucking backfill large language model AI shit to kind of pin the Q posts onto two separate people, and then a year later magically identify Q1 as Paul Ferber and Q2 as Ron Watkins, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at these fucking studies, they're it doesn't say anything about how they get these samples, right? So when they say that Paul Ferber sounds like Q, well, that's because Paul Ferber was fucking copying Q for years. Paul Ferber believed Q was real.
He literally believed it real.
He still believes Q, like 2017 Q is real, and he's still mad about it. He's mad at Ron Watkins, who they say is Q number 2, right? But what all it happened was Paul Ferber is not mentally, he's mentally ill. I'm just gonna say it, and he went on to do Big Dickanon, which was
my favorite.
Was it like a?
I bet he's got a huge hog too, dude. Just saying.
Like a parody LARP almost, but not, like, where he basically just did his own Q drops, right?
Yep.
And fucking impersonated Q for years. So they took his impersonating Q and somehow matched it to him. It's one of the most like astonishing things I've ever seen, because the New York Times, it seemed like, would have somebody there to say, hey, this is dumb.
Uh,
So let me ask you the question. You were there, I was not. Was Paul Ferber anywhere involved in the making of Q drops, or of the conceiving of Q or being Q or anything like that?
Abso-fucking-lutely not. And you know what? He didn't even have anything to do with it. The closest he ever got to being Q was that he was the guy that made the first Q board on 8chan, and the entire time he was like, y'all should come over to 8chan, it's better, we got our own boards, we don't have to worry about all these, guys posting CP and shit. And it was like he was there, and then the Patriot soapbox seems to have taken over, and he's like the fucking first person that called it out. Like, this ain't fucking Q. He's like, this isn't Q. Like, this isn't Q. And that's what put him into the whole tailspin, because when he saw the fucking screenshot of Pamphlet sitting there pulling up his web browser with the Q trip code there and him posting his Q, like it was over. And that's what pissed him off in the first place. Like, he was mad about that, and I don't blame him.
Hey, do you have that?
Oh
Like,
God,
that seems
probably.
to be like the long lost tape that everybody talks about, but nobody fucking has.
Dude, it's on YouTube somewhere. I'll find it.
Okay, if you can find it, I'd love to see it, because it really does not seem to
If
exist
not,
out there.
that bitch Skills, or probably that Skills on Twitter. There's an account that's always talking shit about me and shit. This old bitch, I bet you she's got a copy of it, because like that was all of the rage for the longest time, and
I
then
remember.
it just disappeared.
No, and many people say, I've seen that video. It's just, it doesn't seem to actually exist. But look,
anymore, it's called, on the internet, sometimes people delete shit, or people's channels get deleted. If I had my YouTube channel, I'd be like, hold up, I have it right here. Yeah. But I don't have a YouTube channel anymore, so I can't just be like,
I can fucking, look, I can relate to,
I know.
to that.
I told you,
because I got 45,000 fucking receipts that I can't get to. Mm-hmm. So,
well, what about all the receipts that I had on Defango, man? I have so many receipts that I posted.
Look,
I'm telling you, dude, it hurts.
Like you said, look, as I said at the top, I disagree with a lot of shit you've done, but I also think there is truth. There's clearly truth in what you are saying today, and I think it's important that people hear it. And like I said, I think my brain is now so full of like, okay, most of what I thought, is basically what you said. Few details, new details, like it was fucking McConaughey's server to begin with and not yours, that he called you back a week later. I think that's really important, right? Because it means that the Trump administration was involved in the birth of QAnon. And I think that if it can be, if we can verify that, and I think there's work to do, but if that can be verified, I think, a lot of, it will make a lot of news.
I just Googled Pamphlet Anon posted his Q on YouTube, and Joelbot 5 for the win. Although it seems like it's at a little spot right here. This channel right here is probably going to have it, though. I would look at that, because this is the picture of when he posted, and his eyeballs are all popped out and shit. This is part of it. Like, this is a screenshot from that video, so I know it's here. It's on this. It's got to be on this channel.
All right, great. Well, we'll
because
try and find that. We'll try and find that, and I will if we can, I will add it to the notes of this show. Um, and listen, Manny, I really appreciate your time. And I would, like we talked about, I think there's a lot more to cover. Um, and we'll follow up again soon if you're willing to do part two.
oh yeah, I'm definitely willing. You just hit me up, and as long as I'm not working, I will be more than happy to talk to you, man.
Sounds good. Hey, listen, thanks again. I hope you feel like I've treated you fairly, and we'll do it again soon. Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. And I appreciate you having me on. To all you folks out there listening to this, watching this, I'm an open book, man. I come at you like you come at me, but most of the time I'm gonna be nice. If you've heard bad things about me, I mean, get that shit out of your head. I'm not that guy. I'd rather just like help people understand, because ultimately this was supposed to help people understand how these operations work so that they never have to fall for them again. But I think people have really lost the plot, lost the point of what we're supposed to be doing with this. And I guess that's
Well, I think 50 million brainwashed people later. Yeah, I think we lost that plot a long fucking time ago, right?
yeah, we did.
Like that fucking idea, um, you know, uh, got metastasized into something. One of the worst things that's ever happened to this country. It's creating a fifth column, basically inside the United States, right?
Are you gonna try to tell me right now that Mike Flynn's Putin's fifth column right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're gonna
Yes,
have
I
to
am.
you're gonna have to explain that shit.
I'd be happy to. But we'll do that on the next show. How about that?
Definitely, we're gonna talk about Mike
Um,
Flynn on the next show because we got to talk about Mike
let's
Flynn.
let's do it. There's if we're going to talk about Mike Flynn, then get ready.
Yeah, get ready because y'all are gonna be like, oh no,
Okay, man.
I hate you, Defango.
Uh,
Why do you do this to us? Much love, guys. Have a good
there
one.
he is. All right, brother. Talk soon.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.
All right, that's it. I think we're done. That was fun. See, see. Hey, man. So thanks to everybody that's out there. I figured I would just put it on live and just broadcast it so like nobody could leak that shit. I leaked it myself. I should put it up there and be like, leak chat with this. But more or less, I just wanted to have everything on there in totality for you guys so that you could like hear it and listen to it, because this is what we've talked about for a really long time. And there's a lot of people out there, haters like, Doug. Like, I don't know what your fucking shit's wrong with, Doug. Y'all got all fucked up on me. I ain't trying to get all fucked up on your shit. Damn. And even more so, it's a trip down memory lane, like at first when we talked to him, he didn't believe me, but the more that people dive into this, the more that they start to realize that it can't be any other way. And it's a realization of shit. You know what I'm saying? It's a realization. That's what it's supposed to be. People are supposed to be realizing shit is not exactly what it seems, because it's a lot simpler than what they thought. And sure, yes, there's a lot of extraneous stuff that people are like, well, what about this? What about that? To all the people that watched the live stream, I wasn't paying in the chat answering questions just because I wanted to be just, answering stuff for his podcast. He's not on my show, I'm on his show. And I'm just pirating it because it's a joke, because I'm King Pirate and I pirate shit, get it? And I just pirated his podcast. So, it's funny. It's funny. Come on. So we got to look at these things and say, what can we do other than just keep telling the story? I'm not trying to hate on people. I just want to live and let people know what's going on. That's it. I mean, do we really want to be talking about George Webb and blowing people's minds with biolabs and shit after we just had a huge conversation at Q and you're going to bring up some shit like that? Like, you're going to do me like that, dog? You're going to fucking do me like that, dog? For real? Damn. Yeah. Is it about Q&As? No. It's just about the livelihood. That's what it's about. It's always what it's been about. Understanding what's really happening, how this went down. The story's way cooler. Yeah, the story's way cooler. Why not do a Defango Q&A? God, every time we do Defango Q&As, motherfuckers be calling in and be like, yeah. What do you say, Marfugal do call-ins? We did call-ins. We used to do call-ins. What are you talking about? We did that. We were the ones that fucking made that big, and then everybody stole that shit. And honestly, I was like, I'm so sick and tired of talking to random dumbasses. Fuck this, That's why we don't do call-in shows anymore. Jesus. People are like, hey, do a call-in show. And I'm like, why? So all these trolls could call in and talk all that shit? You think I want to deal with that shit for 2 hours? I've done it so many fucking times. It's ridiculous. Who am I, Nathan Slopeman? Oh, yeah, hi. Thank you for calling Lift the Veil. What's your ridiculous conspiracy theory that I'm going to either promote or not promote because I hate you? Yeah. How come I never talk about my dog? She's outside right now. I gotta go get her. I gotta go get the Lynchy. She's outside with the boys. She's outside with the boys. Yeah. You gotta realize that this shit's grating. Because it's like, we had that first conversation, we have a new conversation, and all these people are like, the fuck, man? We didn't even get to 2019, motherfuckers. That's ridiculous. Ask yourself a question. Is that ridiculous? The answer is yes. That is ridiculous. So in the end of the day, I guess we gotta thank their Jim Stewartson. I'm sure a bunch of people are gonna talk a bunch of shit about all that. It's gonna be a shit show all weekend. I can already see all the Twitter comments. Oh yeah, I'm looking at them right now. It's gonna be a shit show. We just kicked a hornet's nest. I can see all the hornets moving already. I see you. Purple underwear? Weird. All right. Well, I'm out. Bye. Hope you guys had a nice one. Now I'm gonna go take a piss and, find my dog. Bye. See you later. Hope you had a nice time. Bye-bye. One of these days I'll figure it out. I'll probably be dead. But that's whatever.